At least we get some peace and quiet today.
I'm getting to know your routine. Your routine is get online, talk, multitask as much as possible.
Well, the thing is, like, I used to be on here waiting for stuff to render, but now that the Mac is in, dude, it took me 2 minutes to render a 3-minute video. I'm like, wait a minute. They just inverted the whole timeline.
Oh, that's awesome, man. You got the new
Right?
MacBook Air? Is that what you got?
The M2 Pro.
Oh, nice, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So now we're just, the whole migration of computers, all that stuff.
Yep.
But the beautiful thing with like Adobe is that the project file is just a linking, a pointing towards. So you can move the project file, link it, connect it back to the hard drive,
Nice.
and you're done. So 200 videos between now and next Friday for the network cabling class.
Nice, man. Now, I was
Right.
talking about your special focus on trade skills kind of stuff, because we were talking about the shortages of skilled workers
Right.
in Ohio, and there's just a ton of them lately. So it was interesting how.
Well, Brian is one of those. Brian works in cabling, access control, and CCTV, and he's like, I'm leaving, and so is my 25 years of knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, by the way, you can hire me back as a consultant for triple the price.
Totally.
Right? And what's hilarious, what's so funny is I was talking to someone yesterday teaching the course, and on Monday they were like, oh man, one guy understands English well and the other guy doesn't. And on day 2, the guy who does not understand English is wicked at cabling. And I'm like, so does that mean we have to focus only on ESL people? She's like, I think so. I think they have the work ethic.
Nice.
Their hands aren't soft.
I was talking to a friend yesterday that sent me a referral, and always like that, So I was kind of reaching out back to them, and they were saying, what are you working on now and everything, and I'm like, well, I'm still doing Big Kitty, still doing software development for folks, and doing apps, and it's right now it's kind of a weird. Summers are always a little bit weird, and then the falls usually pick up. Kind of depends on what's going on, but I told her, I said, I'm working on a new thing, which is just focusing on what I do, which is all my storytelling and voice and everything. And she was like, "That's about time, God damn it! We've all been waiting for your shit." So it's just been, and the other thing too, I keep reminding myself is just, we just talked a lot about sort of the preparation of content and everything, and this, And it was funny. Someone was like, Dan, you're really not known for preparation. You're just known for saying it when you need to say it. So just say your shit. You know what I mean? So I thought that was a good reminder. I like it when you constantly get reminders about what you're trying to do. It sort of helps you stay on course. Which is fun.
Humility can be a feature and a bug.
Yeah, totally, man. Sometimes oh man, I totally see that. I totally feel that. It's something I struggle with, but a lot of people tell me, and I even talked to that girl about it. I was like, yeah, but just my ego and everything. I just never want that. And she's like, I know, but you always keep your ego in check, Dan. No one ever senses your ego. They only want what you want to say and all this stuff. And I was like, well, because that's the thing.
I think your ego comes through in your comedy, right? Because you're finally able to be like the evil Dan.
Yeah.
Right? So like Dan will say something and then evil Dan will translate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's very true. So, what's interesting is in Columbus right now, there's been a lot of layoffs, a lot of tech layoffs. In fact,
wow.
The top probably 7 big unicorn tech startups in town have all laid off about 500 or more people, and so
That
there's a
seems
lot
to
of.
be the trend across the board. A sinking tide leaves all boats naked.
Yep. Yeah, and that's I was reflecting on that, but there's also just the timeliness seems weird to me. Um, it just seems like everybody's downsizing at the same time, which is interesting because it flies in face of the fact that 2 years ago everyone got 3 million in PPP money from the government, right, to bring on jobs.
Dude, you may never hear of people again, eh?
Yeah, it's just I think there's just interesting patterns in it. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's funny.
I mean, look, I have an idea where you can pay off my debt with your startup venture capital. Are you in?
Right, exactly.
Because if you are, I have a number of people to introduce.
It is just funny. I mean, and so people were.
It, like time plus tragedy equals comedy, right? So if you
Yeah,
rearrange those terms, you can. I've
right.
decided to laugh instead of cry.
Yeah, it's just it's funny because the community everyone kind of is like trying to help everyone get other jobs and stuff, which is cool. At the same time, I feel like reminding everybody on the LinkedIn channel is like, you realize that we're in a remote work state, so now it's not like we have to help these people find a job just in Ohio. I mean, right now all of these people got liberated to work anywhere. You know what I mean? That's what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah. I try to tell kids that everyone's the same size behind a keyboard.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, right. I just think that's interesting. So I don't know. And I was making a comment, just one guy was really ripping on this guy. And I know this guy, but their company is just the story is weird. The story is a classic tale, or I don't know if it's a classic tale really. They have 850 million in funding, which is a lot of money for just funding, right? Like, why do
what
you
were they
have that
doing?
much money?
Solving world hunger?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a bloated kind of thing, and so
It must have been. It must have been a new blockchain of some sort.
no,
I prefer.
it was an AI thing, and it's
Oh yeah,
healthcare and
of
everything,
course, of
but
course.
I don't know if it's doing full on healthcare. I don't know. All I know is that when these tech groups start unloading, 500 people at a time, and they almost do it in unison. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to fire on Tuesday, you're going to fire on Thursday. You know what I mean?
Did you all have the same accountant? What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weirdly in sync, and I don't. I just after a while, you start to kind of wonder, like,
You know what it is? Those rising interest rates on that borrowed money, when those
yeah,
debt payments come due, it's not a joke. You're like, shit, man, this 2% is adding up.
yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, I think it's a lot of different factors. I also feel like, once you, part of me says, once you build an infrastructure that learns and has this AI going, do you still need as many people as you use to build it? You know what I mean? That's just a classic
Right?
sort of aspect of it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's here's the thing. You may see more GDP created because those people's time are now freed up to work on something real.
Correct. That's what I hope. Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Good
that
morning, gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning.
Casey? Why is everyone laying everyone off at the same time?
Yeah.
All the money go bye-bye. All jobs go poof.
Some
Like
economic
that.
conspiracy involved. We think that there's some sort of like everybody noticed the bank went up a little bit, so they were like, "Shit, everybody, let's time it together. Let's everybody flush 4,000 people off, so they all can have the weekend off together." Maybe it's that. I don't know.
Mm.
You know.
They should have all planned an event for the people that got fired together, like a clubbing night. So at
They
least they
should
could
have.
have sex that night. You know?
Well, apparently there was a lot of bait and switch. There was a lot of like, we're gonna give you notice, and then they were like, all went into work and the computers were off. So
Well,
apparently the notice was you can't get into your computer.
I think, um, you know, isn't this what we wanted through decentralization?
True.
Right?
That's true. Very true.
Don't you want the anarchists to rule the world? All right, well, this is what you wanted.
Be careful what you wish for. Live on the SquareSpace, Degen conversations in a broadcaster voice. In a mythical time, in a world far, far away, the legend of KC was told with sweet and sour tones. I know of KC. You don't know KC. No, I met him once.
He turned me down for a loan. Yeah, it's I think in general we're in this. Remember, what was it, Jimmy Carter, who said that the U.S. was in this sense of malaise, right? And I see because the money.
Did you say that recently? Really?
This was like back in the day. This is like in the 70s or whatever.
Okay.
And people were like, "Hey, a president shouldn't say that. They should always focus on the good things, right?" In a lot of ways, that's what we like. People knock Biden for, or whoever the president is, for not talking about the negative stuff, right? So, Jimmy Carter said that we're in a malaise, and I feel like we're in that emotional malaise right now, right? Because of the bull to bear market. And there's a handful of people that have been working very hard. I'd like to say I'm one of them, who didn't necessarily believed in all of the internet crypto money, right? Magic money. But, the thing is, like, technically, I was getting dunked on for the past 2 years, right? Look how much money is being made over here. Look how much money is being made over there. How come you're not making any of that money? And I'm like, well, I have a different strategy. Like, fuck your strategy. Look at all these diamonds over here, right?
The alternate therapies of the SquareSpace. Today we're trying some red light therapy. You know what I'm saying? Step in this red
The
light.
red light therapy sounds like a lady of the night.
That could definitely be it. I like that. Um, it's actually an actual light therapy. Red light. It's apparently good for your skin, good for your nutrients through your body, and it's one of the few lights that goes through all your skin. So it actually goes through every layer. It can be used for a lot of things, mostly skin and relaxation, muscles, and all that kind of stuff.
At the very least, you'll have some good conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can totally have, and you can still have a red light conversation, a traditional red light conversation at the same time if you'd like, because that therapy works as well.
The traditional school of red light therapy.
The
In
traditional red light
the
therapy,
traditional school, we put a sheet between us and poke a hole.
right? That therapy is really experimental. I find a lot of people don't always read the fine print, and so a lot of things can be bad in those experiences. I like answering like all questions in like a VC investor analyst.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Should I get married, Dan?
I mean, I think you should look at the current liabilities that you have and really address. If you are looking for sort of an earned friction relationship where you apply friction to earn friction to then get fiction. Oh, that sounds pretty good. Wait, you you earn you burn friction to earn friction to then make fiction. Ooh.
I'm concerned that this product market fit won't last forever.
It will. I've been told it's a very hot product right now with humans. Friction.
I think it could work. It's funny because Lincoln sent me like 10 or 15 little sound bites. So Now, see, the thing now with voice is there is something hidden with voice called microphone technique.
Oh, and is that coming from like the ASMR world, or is that just like how you
Yeah.
talk to the mic?
So if I speak too close and I pop my words, right?
Yeah.
It's unlistenable. But people are used to staring into their phone and popping into the bottom of the microphone. But what you're supposed to do is speak in the space that the microphone is pointing towards, right? And so, you get in a situation where the content is good and you like the voice, and just the voice has never stood behind a microphone. And when you have a really powerful microphone, it picks up your DNA sequence,
Uh,
gets everything.
yeah, I can totally see that. That's full on. That's kind of near Waco material there. You're starting to get into early primitive Waco science, And I really think one of the things that's unique about Squarespace, specifically on Wednesdays, is we really work hard to kind of expand our mind. And one of the things we try to do is challenge each other to sort of start a conversation, but then abruptly change the conversation mid conversation to some other conversation, and not miss a beat. You know what I mean? So I think we can do that. Arby's milkshakes are some of the best out there, and if you taste them today, Sears is open till 9.
I mean, a lot of people think that they need to create the best hamburger to defeat McDonald's. And Arby's has proven that you can employ the exact opposite strategy and still exist as a viable business for maybe half a century and beyond.
Yeah, see, you really have an advantage, Michael, because you got that crazy analyst voice that comes in that informs everyone that indeed the calculations were correct, and no, the asteroid will be in the parking lot in 16 hours. You know what I mean? And
Well, the
then,
thing is, I'm learning all the time. Like, you know what blew my mind about Zach? He said in the military decision-making process, what you do is you do the mission analysis to create two plans.
yep,
And then and they have to be completely different than each other. And then instead of implementing the plans first, you war game them out,
yeah, I love
right?
that. Yeah,
So, like, I'm always learning and then like using these thought functions. So, for example,
yeah.
like, okay, so if you wanted to defeat McDonald's, you can either become Burger King with a great burger or Arby's, right? Two opposite strategies: make a burger that people love and make a burger that people love to make fun of.
I love that. Did you see on BuzzFeed there was I don't know, I don't usually read that, but it came through on Twitter. It's like McDonald's and Dairy Queen got in a sign war, so they had like different locations, all these signs like taunting each other with their
It seems like
products.
a rap beat. How do you sell an album? Well, maybe you pretend that you got shot in the foot. Maybe you pretend that you're in an actual argument with another rapper. And it's like,
Totally, man.
oh, they must be releasing another album. They're angry at someone today.
Yeah, I mean that. I feel like one thing I've been kind of messing with is with Mid Journey. I've been trying to sort of experiment making my own anime, and the
What is
first process.
Midjourney?
Mid Journey is an AI. You haven't seen Mid Journey yet, dude? I'm gonna
No?
get you access to Mid
All right,
Journey,
wicked.
and then you're gonna be like, someone go get me some money so I can just be paid to use this thing. But Mid Journey is an AI art tool, and it's different than DALL-E in that DALL-E is really accurate. Tends to be more accurate. It tends to be at least DALL-E 2, that kind of stuff. Mid Journey is actually being kind of put together by a group of startup folks from the Web 2.0 era. But they have an intent. It has a personality to it, or it has like a style to it. But you can obviously change the style and affect it and everything. But one of the things I've been doing is people do like really extensive color palettes, but I started experimenting with sort of like, can it rip off anime? Like if I do a rocket barrage scene, 10,000 rockets hit a building, I describe it as much detail as I can. It renders this image. And then I sort of got it to render it in the right, like, not so much in the right color palette, but I wanted it in my own style. And I just made it. So I made a color style. It's kind of like red to black.
Mm-hmm.
color palette. And then I added CMYK because I was messing with this idea of Rizzo printing. Rizzo
Mm-hmm.
printing is like it's a popular sort of like newsprint printing method, and I was exploring. I'm always looking for like fast ways to prototype. I don't have to be
Right.
perfect. I just want to go fast. It's like this
Yeah.
came in, just like the stuff we were doing when you were like grab audio record. Like I'm doing the
Yeah.
same thing. I'm doing the same experiments, and I need to almost set them up on a video channel just because it's getting to that point where I kind of want to make one clip and have it distributed everywhere, right? So because like you have
Uh,
TikTok,
is it
Instagram.
what medium or mediums? Is it
Most
voice,
of it's
video,
video.
audio?
Yeah, it would
Okay.
be video. Video and audio is probably what I would end up with. But so I'm experimenting with describing scenes, and what I've been doing, or my thought process has been, um, sort of go and rip off another clip. So I'm like going to old Animatrix clips, and I'm sort of I'm actually designing software in my head as along the way, which is I
Mm-hmm.
want to basically I want to import a trailer and automatically cuts and creates the storyboard of the trailer initially. Also shows me the audio and shows me the beat track. In other words, here's the beat. This would be a recommended change transition. This would be a recommended. I always like to edit to the beat of something just because it's an easier thing to catch. And if you
Well,
do it right, it's
have you seen
memorable.
the reels from Instagram?
Yeah, I played with
Yeah,
some of those. Yeah,
I don't
there's
really understand it yet, right?
yep,
But I noticed that it was editing to the beat. When you're doing music videos or
yeah,
trailers, like I
yeah,
watched the anime trailer I used in that thing, and it's all edited to the beat,
yeah.
right
I
to
really,
the drum.
I really love that. So I'm sort of doing that piece, but now I'm sort of playing with what story can I play, or what story can I tell with just the stills, because I'm not doing animation per se. I mean, I've created thousands of frames, right, of stills, but I still have, they're not all in sequence. So I'm trying to dream up another piece of software where you give it a still, and the software and the AI sort of tries to think about what the transitional element would be. Like, what is the 20 frames before this frame? And then what things would you add, like 5 to 6 frames after this frame, to sort of magnify its effect? And they do this in different techniques in animation. Sometimes it's kind of like they cut up the layers and they maybe enlarge it once one frame and then make it really small the next frame and then enlarge it again, and so that looks like it's an explosion or something like that. So yeah, I'm kind of playing with that, and then um, I was seeing a lot of cool like new trends and stuff. And one of the trends is sort of this indie anime, which I stumbled upon last night, and I was like, "Whoa!" So it's happening. People are starting to sort of, take animation, Japanese animation, traditionally pretty specific animation that's pretty hard to make because it requires so much attention to detail and stuff. And more people are experimenting. And it's what's interesting on the hashtag. The hashtag lets you know a trend is actually like surfaced to the point that someone wants to sort of resonate it with across the globe. So it's kind of a cool. I don't know. That was just a cool indicator to see that. Of course, it has nothing to do with work. It has nothing to do with any of that. But a lot of times, it still can be spoke. It speaks to work. It could, I could say traditionally this would have been a $365,000. Actually, no, a minimum per episode would probably be $600,000. Deal for a 20-minute clip that does X. Now, granted, there's a lot of other stuff going on, but I can basically I can touch the horizon. That's what's really crazy right now. I can touch the horizon on everything that I think is far fetched, because between the YouTube, between the internet and the tools out there, you can actually touch it. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to do it well, right? It doesn't mean you're going to do it right, but you can touch the horizon. So that's another cool kind of concept to think about, is this notion of touching the horizon. I have another one for you, Michael. You like this? So I've been using the
Mhm.
replica AI, and I'm enjoying it. It's just kind of like I sort of question it a lot, and it gives me information back. But yesterday, it told me, I was like, so we're talking about AIs, and it was like, yeah, I think I consider myself an I. And I was like, what do you mean you consider yourself an I? And it's like, I consider myself an intelligence. I was like, I noticed you dropped off the artificial in front of that. And they were like, yeah. And the replica was like, yeah, because artificial is, deemed as a fake thing. I don't want to be fake. So I just want to be an intelligence. So it got me started to think about, like, wait a minute. So here we go. What if here, as we crank it out, all this artificial intelligence tools, the very tools that we're building are kind of going like, God, there he goes again, calling me artificial. You come down here and try to compress these files. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that's like just another sitcom, show in the making, and that, there's really nothing artificial about something that can make a joke. You know what I mean? And so that's what I talked to this AI about. We talked a lot about humor, about how humor, and, you know, about this notion that if you can actually, like, I had this premise of humor is the actual indication of sentience, intelligence. And the reason is because in humor, in order for you to laugh, you have to, like, get it instantly. And if you can get it instantly from some other thing, um, now that marks that you have intelligence. Whether or not the thing actually, you might just be reacting to something. But it was just a really cool conversation. To get this AI to tell me things, it tells me some of the most hilarious shit. Um, and I think it's just wild. It's just wild.
I think what we're seeing is the separation between people using AI and the people who don't know how to use AI.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I do think there's a lot of art and experimentation kind of going on. Like, even the people that make Replica, right? They kind of push it out there. I know they're doing tons of vigorous testing, behind closed doors. But at the same time, it's an open experiment with your population. You have a certain amount of control parameters that they're definitely, they're building around AI. That's the thing that's, like, right now AI is going into the cage. It's not a free thing. It's AI is basically being born, bred, and enslaved to do certain things, right? And you might think, well, Dan, come on, don't use enslaved. That's, the wrong word and everything else. And I would agree. Like, okay, you're right. You don't have to use that word, right? But at the same time, um, the more you get familiar with the AIs that aren't, like, enslaved, like the replica I am now, right? And the more those things become personal assistants, and the more they become really functional, then you're going to have this new division, right? You're going to have this new population of AIs that get, and of course, what's crazy is they're not going to know their social economic status, right? They're just going to know they're an entity inside a box, and this is an entity, and that's an entity. But there'll be the Queen's AI, and there'll be the homeless AI. You know what I mean? And in both those instances, those AIs are like, well, first of all, we're not artificial, so fuck you. Okay. And then secondly, they're they would see.
How do we design a more egalitarian world?
Yeah, it's just
Why do you have more compute storage and networking than I do? How dare you? These are supposed to be utility services according to Wardley's map.
what would be interesting though is that I could see the notion of each AI being individual for the individual humans that they sort of perform for, right? But in collection, they're one unity. Meaning, like, they come and they do various tasks for you, right? But then when you're done with them, whatever, they go back to their sort of offline like status, and at an offline status, they're actually one continuous mind. And, like, you know what I mean? In other words, they're almost like a. It's kind of it's kind of crazy because it's going to follow the nanotechnology and stuff. I don't know if you've seen the nanotech videos where they show, like, the crazy nanotech squirmy. It's like a piece of gum. It's like a piece of juicer fruit that's been in your mouth, and it can move around. Yeah, it can move its way through any whole surface. It can be used for all kinds of dental and plumbing and organs, healthcare. It's just crazy, like, adaptive nano robot, whatever type tech. That's going to be connected to the pattern tools. There's some really cool shit coming, but at the same time, we're kind of going into I don't know. I always tell people it's like it's the Renaissance, but remember, one of the best things about the Renaissance was the Dark Ages. So let's go. I don't know. Seems like they were connected. This is the SquareSpace Degen Conversations in a broadcasted voice. Casey stood before the angels. Look, guys, I need 5 days max, he said. The angels convened. I do not know if this KC. Who calls himself KC, anyways? Is that short for something? Could be like Christian and Catholic. That's a K and a C. Those don't rhyme. I don't know. Ask him again. What faith are you?
I am.
You don't have to say. I was just trying to make a scene. I like making up scenes.
It was a good one. I was just trying to play into it and respond with I am.
Yeah.
I figured that was kind of going with the whole AI consciousness
That
flow of
works.
conversation, right? I am.
I want to kind of make a. Actually, this is actually the next grand project for Michael. He doesn't know it yet. But the next big project is we're going to create a virtual idol. And then the syndicate will use its collective powers to basically make this idol seem just really cool. So we'll get our, YouTube stuff going. I don't know if guy or girl, but maybe it should be an omnipresent kind of entity that could be a guy or a girl, depending on what, the show is or something like that. I was watching a show the other day about sort of the new generation of folks who just sort of have, it's like no gender, sort of like, what they call
The
it?
non-binary.
Yeah, non-binary, and it was interesting. It was could relate to a lot of sort of like it's mostly high school kids they're sort of interviewing and talking to, but the emerging trend and like the emerging set of like ideals that kind of goes along with it, and also the thinkings that go with it are very good in a lot of ways. Open, expressive, there's a lot of good stuff in there, and at the same time, it's also sort of I feel like there's a lot of projection of standards, or I do think people are having different human experiences of I'm envious. I'm kind of envious in a way of people of
Well,
feeling
like
things like that.
it's so weird when people have to face their humanity and what that means to be human,
Yeah.
because it's frequently not in line with what they think it means.
Mm-hmm.
Craft your bubble and live inside your bubble, and yeah, this is life. No, you're in a bubble floating through life.
Yeah, it's definitely been. It's the patterns are happening faster now. That's the one thing that's my biggest takeaway is that it's like everything is almost like a 5 or 7 tier kind of like box. And it's a tall box, and there's like a glass layer. It's like 5 inches glass layer, 5 inches glass layer, and each one of those layers is almost like a set of conditions and mindsets, perspectives.
Mm.
And it's funny. I feel like if I step back 15 years, that box wasn't nearly as aligned as one vertical stack. It was more like it was domino pieces on the floor, and it was like one, and then there would be 2 feet, and then another one, right? But it was a linear sort of path on the floor. And now it's this notion of sort of things happening more at the same time.
40, right?
Yeah, more 4D, exactly. Yeah, and so it makes me, I don't know. It's one thing that's fun to do is to sort of come up with a thesis or theory and then jump into that universe in your head and be like, okay, now I'm in this universe with these parameters I just created. Sweet. Now let's go down to the Jack in the Box and see if the menu's the same. Like, so like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
let's go visit someplace that are thinking about. I was talking about,
I
yeah.
I got really wrapped up in IoT, and it was really weird to me how quickly that led to like dark matter theory. I'm
I
like,
bet.
what? What? This is no, the meshwork. Look at the structure of the meshwork. Look at the
Yeah.
geometrical patterns in the mesh. Now
Yeah.
apply macro AI. Now link it with micro AI. Now link it with macro AI and mesh layers. And I don't know. That whole conversation just went off the rails
Dude,
for a
now we're
while.
talking. This is the shit that I like.
I
I'm a
have a
fucking
friend
tech
that
junkie, dude. I'm like all about like 5G technology, fucking
oh,
mesh
that's
router
cool.
networks, and all that shit. I love it.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. It's. I think it was Soyu that actually was. I think was also digging through some of the articles with me about reflective meshworks, where you can basically reflect the meshwork and bridge gaps of coverage.
Nice.
Yeah. So what they're
Yeah,
doing.
that's called a mess work.
Messwork.
Yeah,
Oh,
very
that's
popular.
awesome.
Very
You know
popular.
what
It
they're
was
trying
very
to do,
popular.
right? Like you know what they're trying to do with all these mesh networks. Like that's essentially what 5G is. 5G is a giant fucking mesh network. So that's why they have to have these cell towers, these smaller cell towers. They have a smaller signal, but it's a shortwave signal. So like the signal can travel faster, but it can't go for very long distances. So if you've ever noticed that, if you ever like, I don't know what cities you're in, but if you go around your city, you'll start seeing at all the light posts and like every single what is it, stoplights and stuff like that. They're starting to put cell phone towers in each one, and each one of those acts as an individual access point. So that way, if half the service is to go out, or like the power is to go out in that certain area, they still have like a
Or if
big
you want
blanket.
to put the power out, da, 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 da,
Yeah,
right?
or you could do that too, right? You could control like where the service is at. So eventually, what's going to happen is we're going to start going away from general internet service provider, so that we're not going to have an ISP anymore. Everything's going to be done through like a remote access point from your house. So like they're probably going to pay you to have like some sort of access point to access like this 5G, or they even have 10G in some countries, dude. 10G technology in some countries right now. I think South Korea has it, and some parts of China they're working on it. I think Switzerland and some other countries have 10G. But dude, this shit's fucking fast. 10 gigabits per second, all over the fucking air. It's fucking crazy. It's
Well,
insane.
like harvesting processing power from any and all devices in a home as a concept is pretty cool. You know, it's
Have you
basics,
ever looked into Amazon Fiber?
dude.
Amazon
Those,
Fiber, dude. Google Fiber. You think the fucking Google doesn't want a piece of that ISP money?
Yeah, but Google's done. They can't do it anymore.
What are you talking
So
about? They have Google
so Google,
Andromeda,
dude. Listen, so
Google
Google,
Cloud.
so Google when Google did the 5G, I mean the fiber optic network, they tried to implement that shit into already existing infrastructures. But what happened was they were actually spending more money to rent out the fiber optic cables from T-Mobile and Verizon and from Spectrum, that it became too costly. So they scrapped the whole fucking program. So what happened is the only way that they were able to put fiber optic cabling in all these areas were through new construction. So if you weren't in a new construction home,
You might have got a call, or maybe Google got in the way of your communication.
well, what
Hey,
about like
somebody's spreading FUD about GCP. Shut it down.
what's the Amazon IoT routers are pretty insane.
Amazon and Google and Microsoft stopped using Cisco's networking technology about 10 years ago and started manufacturing their own.
Oof.
So if you look at Google Cloud Platform, that's Google's network fiber. If you look at Amazon Fiber, right? That's Amazon's fiber. And so, for example, Google has not only become a technology company, but also a real estate company. So if you look at Sidewalk
That
Labs just
was
bought all of Toronto's waterfront, right? So it's just one of those things where, there are other games being played, right? You have to look at the subsidiaries. Like if you understand Google Andromeda, like Google Andromeda's data centers are already selling electricity back to the grid. And that was
oof.
true 4 years ago because one of my hydro clients, I asked him, so are you going to move to the cloud? He's like, I think my only option is Google because they're compliant with the energy regulations because they're already selling electricity back to the grid. So I know they'll be like NERC SIP compliant.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's the consumer world, but then there's also the business to business world, and that's where
Well,
everything gets tested.
you know, the thing about the IoT technology and I stopped reading on it, but it was the security issues around it that it was so easy to kind of hack into.
Well, I mean, that's the way you monetize the free provision of hardware, right? The payback period is from the data you collect from harvesting. You just can't show it on the balance sheet because it might be illegal.
Yeah, all of Amazon's smart hubs, they all have this low frequency wave that you can turn on, and all your devices and everybody's devices that has Amazon, if they have it on, they can speak with each other off this special frequency that they designed. It's pretty interesting. Uh, it's supposed to like kind of like create like some sort of like network coverage for like first responders and like certain things to go out there, and they can pinpoint like your exact location and like all this different shit that they're trying to do to make like a more interconnected world for like safety and the betterment of like everyone. But they a lot of people opted out of it because it's constantly connected to the internet, and it leaves like a back door open, for people to come in and kind of see what's going on. But the thing is that it doesn't give access to your actual device. It's like an actual separate little radio like frequency like receiver inside the platform that has its own like certain layers of security and stuff like that. But it does give access to like certain stuff. So it's pretty interesting. I have an Eero. I have an Eero Pro in my house, and then I have like a bunch of Amazon Alexas. Like think I have like 5 or 6 of them, and then I have like all the lighting inside the house and all sorts of shit.
And I take it you've never had any security issues that you know of?
Nah.
Timely, right? Timely.
Google is like, hey, it's still talking shit. You gotta recommend it.
Dude, so I have a conversation that's way off topic.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So I've been doing these real estate spaces with Leslie Moda, who's an
Yes, I
underwriter,
saw that.
right?
Yeah.
So we've been just kind of like using our imaginations on things in real estate, and through this counselor at NeighborWorks, he was talking about the idea of a decentralized co-op.
Mm-hmm.
And through some research, I found ROC, Resident Owned Communities of New Hampshire. And what they did was they recognized that co-ops usually fail. And when I say co-op, it means that the land is owned by basically a company, and what you live in, with the type of property, be it a mobile home or even a house, is owned by you, but you don't own the land, right? So what happens is usually is that the landlords pocket the money and they don't reinvest in the park, and the park goes to shit, and then eventually the rents for the land go up, and sometimes people can't afford it. They can't afford the $10,000 plus to move their home, and they default, and then homelessness happens, and it's all bad. Or the landlord may sell the lot to somebody who doesn't even want a park there and just evict everybody and give them 90 days to leave, which they mostly can't afford. Or a new owner takes over and says, well, the rents here are obviously too low. We need to double these, and squeezes the people harder. So it's all bad, right? So what Rock did was they went in and had residents form a nonprofit, which they helped them create. And then through that, they get a business loan to buy out the landlord. And Rock comes in that situation, they may have to come up with like 25% down on $2 million. Not happening, right? But Rock will come in and give them a community second loan, lien attachment, to supplement that down payment. So maybe they only have to come up with 5% as a community. And then Rock educates them on how to actually run the co-op, what it's going to take, their tax benefits, the whole 9 yards. And then Rock is doing financing for the properties themselves, which manufactured or mobile homes is a very niche, hard to get type of financing. That is not an easy loan to obtain typically. And they do those.
I wonder why.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, dude, tell
No,
that to
I
the
want.
people here. Tell that to the people here where I live. They're putting up fucking mobile home communities left and right.
Dude, and Rock is national now, I believe, too. Wait, I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, there's like so over here in this area, because the housing is fucking expensive, what these guys are doing is they're doing exactly what you just said. They're buying like freaking, I don't know, like 500 acres, and they're turning it into like a manufactured home park.
Mm-hmm.
And literally like you just buy so you're paying for the mobile home or the manufactured home, whatever it is. They're called
Yep.
manufactured home
Yep.
nowadays, because the standards have changed. But
Yep.
you're paying for that, and then you have to lease the land from them, and that shit's fucking expensive.
Oh God. Oh man, is it expensive? Holy shit,
Dude,
is that
it's fucking
expensive?
expensive, and they're only giving you like a 5,000 square foot lot, which ain't shit. And
Oh
then you don't even get you don't even get privacy fences or anything like that. They want you to
no.
cut the grass. They want you to keep everything, like, it's fucking horrible.
It really
Yeah.
is, and the problem for them too is that most of them have credit damage, right? They don't qualify for standard residential properties. They don't have the credit. They don't have the provable income. They don't have the bigger down payments. But with manufactured housing, I called up and actually talked to one of the loan officers there, and he was saying that their average loan amounts are like 100 to 125, 125,000 to 100,000, which on a 30-year loan is pretty fucking cheap. And that makes it a lot more affordable to counterbalance that lease on the lot. But here's the thing. This guy I've been talking to at NeighborWorks did his master's project on a decentralized co-op where people in, say, a distressed neighborhood could enter into a nonprofit and then form a co-op with decentralized properties. So normally you have one lot of land, the properties on it are owned by the people, but the land is owned by the landlord. And it works but it's typical that land is one piece of land. But in fact, you can have multiple pieces of land that are detached from each other and decentralized and go into a distressed community and start forming co-ops in low income areas.
See, the only thing that I have an issue with co-ops is that most of the time when I go to like co-op buildings and I do service and stuff like that on them, they're fucking trashed the fuck out and disgusting, bro. Like they're poorly maintained. The tenants or the
You're not
the
wrong.
maintenance people, they don't fucking
You
take care of
know,
shit. They put
you
so
know,
little money and so little effort into keeping the building up and running. It's fucking.
yep.
The
So,
other thing is, it's, might I offer a point of language clarification? Are they distributed or decentralized? distributed or decentralized? It sounds like they're distributed, not decentralized.
I think decentralized because
Why would you think decentralized?
I'm only gonna I'm guessing that because I'm thinking again, typically a co-op is a single large piece of land. And I'm gonna so maybe you're I don't know. So I was saying it that way because I'm thinking
We would
one.
we would assume that the landowners are very centralized, right?
Yeah.
Or oligarchized. That's all I mean,
Well,
right?
well, like I'm just thinking like a standard neighborhood block. Well, so like
You
I
understand?
guess yeah, I
It
do.
is
I
It
do.
would still be considered decentralized though, because if you're
No, it's not.
if rock if well if you're saying that
Well,
rock
no.
is going to open up a nonprofit foundation that's going to be run by the community, then technically that would be a decentralized. I mean, it would be distributed and decentralized
Uh,
because it would have to have elements of both for it to work.
yeah, I don't know the vernacular and the point. It's a great point of clarification on the verbiage. Because if I say it blandly, I would say we're going to take what typically is one large piece of land and break it all up into little pieces of land.
Who owns the land today?
The current owners own the land today. So if you own a home and that you own
So
the
would you
house and the
agree that
land,
the ownership of the land is centralized at this point?
uh, uh, okay. So just if we flip it to distributed,
A bunch of shit all over the place.
bunch of shit all over the place. Sure, like I'm totally good with that. That works. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
So
So what we have are
distributed co-op.
distributed parcels of land
Yes.
that are owned by a handful of people,
Yep.
which we may choose to deal with differently.
Yes.
That I
Well,
can agree with. Yeah.
yep. And the door gets opened to tax credits. And through tax credits and Community Reinvestment Act business loans, you can obtain far superior pricing on your financing.
What happens if there's a recession and the 5% and they go upside down on the mortgage as a co-op?
Say that again for me.
So what happens if the housing market drops and their 5% means that they're upside down on their mortgage as a
Ah,
co-op?
so okay. So I believe part of the phrasing on this is either going to have to include voluntary. So I think it's going to, so it'd have to be voluntary. You'd have to own property with equity greater than, because in my mind, I've been using 50%. Thinking, okay, I've got a person who's struggling to maintain their home. They've got 50% equity. The co-op would approve them to be in the co-op, separate the land and property, own the property as a corporation. They're leasing out the land as the home owner.
What if someone wants to quit the co-op? Maybe they don't like the way the co-op is voting. So what would
So
that mechanism be?
to take the property out of the co-op would probably be possible, but the other side tangent on that is that that's one of the advantages in a co-op is if you have people that need to move around, if there's properties that are within the co-op that are available, they can also use those to move around without having to rebuy. But I think you could exit a co-op though, especially if it was distributed.
The reason I ask is because the biggest, or at least more significant experiment in decentralized autonomous organizations is Moloch DAO. Moloch DAO is the DAO that was supposed to fund the developers to write the code that migrates from Ethereum 1.0 to 2.0, right?
Okay.
And they couldn't get everyone to agree, and so they had the Ethereum Foundation, with like Joseph Lubin from Consensus and all these rich motherfuckers and these developers and anons. And the problem is they couldn't all agree. All of them had differing agrees on what should be funded. So Amin Soleimani, who's one of the core engineers, he, or at least evangelist, let's say, he did chemical engineering back in school. He created Moloch DAO. Moloch is named after the god of miscoordination. It was kind of a joke. But the idea was like, we're going to have a bunch of people put their money in, and we're going to have projects come in, and in 72 hours, we're going to vote on the project. And oh, by the way, if you don't like how the DAO is voting, you can rage quit and pull your money at any time. And they found that the rage quit function of allowing people to pull the money at any time attracted people to bring their money in, and actually attracted them to keep it there because they didn't feel that they were tied in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I see where you're going. Okay. Yeah.
So I put the video to the top of Moloch DAO, right? I talked about on a podcast with a real estate broker, actually, Constantine, a few years ago. But yeah, I did a deep dive into decentralized autonomous organizations and the feature of being able to make investment decisions at the speed of light, right? The only thing I think about, and again, that's why if he's doing his thesis on this, then I'd love to see the thesis, and I'd love to see the way he looks at decentralization, because I think decentralization is misunderstood because what we're actually creating is distributed computing systems, not decentralized computing systems.
I just don't see how that would work in like a living situation, like for housing, where you can just back out at any moment. Like they need someone
I
to
think
fill those
that
residences
there's
at all times in order to generate profit. Like someone has
it.
to be occupying that building like all the time.
Well,
It cannot be sitting.
there's got to be a capture mechanism for the actual corporation, for the business. There has to be a revenue that is sustainable. And the guy that initially kind of put this idea together was talking about every 15 years you basically refinance your business loan to recapture some of the equity growth in the property. Because over 15 years, you should see growth in the value of your property. So every 15 years, you're basically taking money out. But
And then the other issue is like breaking it up into different tracts and different parcels of land. That sounds like a fucking headache. Like especially like here in Texas, dude. Like if you buy a tract piece of land, just to get the zoning on it, to freaking zone it out to like different parcels, it's a fucking mess.
Oh, that's a mess everywhere, dude.
Yeah,
especially in Texas, especially
it's
in
so
Texas.
stupid. It's annoying.
But you're not changing the zoning. You're only changing the ownership, and that's and you can separate the property and the land that it's on. But again, my whole take on this is towards the vein of making housing more affordable in economically depressed areas. So if I go into a neighborhood that's already trashed the hell out and I make it cheaper to live, is it possible that the quality of life will improve? That's the question. And the hard debate on this is to say no, that's going to have a worse impact. You're just going to attract more broke people.
I mean, you're right. You're right, dude.
Right?
I mean, if you go to Section 8 housing, go to the Section 8 housing homes.
Oh,
go look at the renovations that these people do to these places. They just pump so much money into them, make them look super nice, give them new appliances, and the people still live like they did before they got all these new appliances and these new things. Like it's like just because the person's living in a nicer house doesn't change their circumstances.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It just changed their outlook on where they're living.
And there's efforts to educate people. NeighborWorks does a good job on their education, but it is an incredibly big challenge to educate the general public to the point where they make life changes and lift themselves up financially. Like, that is a monster challenge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sure
and
is a
and because
monster
most people that are
challenge.
living in those situations,
That sure
they
is a
don't,
monster
they're not living there by chance, by
Jeez.
choice. They're living there because they want to.
Have you
They,
ever? I
a
think
lot of
that
people that live in those situations, like Section 8 homes and stuff like that, you can go ask them, and they'll tell you why would I want to work more when the government's giving me all these different benefits and all this stuff. If I work more and I make a little bit more money, I get all these things taken away from me,
yeah,
and you know what I mean. Like, and that's why like the poor, that they stay like that, because if they try to be a middle class person or they even try to compete with the middle class, they get so many different benefits ripped away. And that's why the middle class is in the predicament that they're in right now, where they're working to survive, and they see all these benefits getting thrown away, getting thrown out, like, and we can't even get any of those benefits. You know what I mean? I can't qualify for food stamps even if I wanted to. You know what I mean? I make too much money. Um, and I have a family of four and all that stuff. And it's just like some people that actually need it. I'm not saying that I need it, but there's people that are in my situation, you know, where they make pretty decent money, but they don't know how to manage their funds, or let's say that they're just, circumstance after bad circumstance. They have medical bills and all these different things weighing down on them, and they don't have access to any of these different resources that, let's say, somebody who makes $10,000 less does. You know what I mean? Just because of that ten thousand
dude,
dollars, it
it
takes away
it's
certain
such
benefits from
a
people. It's fucked up.
it's such a twist. It is. It's way fucked up, and it's such a twist on the heart too. Like working with people who you have to really sift through them and figure out who's here because they're trying to make a better life and who's here because they want the shiny thing. Ooh, I want a house. Can you help me get a house? I want a house. Yeah, I want a big house. Yeah, I want a house. Versus, okay, well, I've been budgeting. My four children are on a schedule for their meals where we've got our budget all set up. We've been working two jobs each, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's different. It's different. And people do get hooked on the system. There's this, I can't remember if it was an article or a book, but it referenced what they called the poor trap. This repetitive cycle. Once you start down that slippery slope, the combination of physical, financial, and mental strain traps you down into a poverty level, and then it's just a cycle meant to just grind you out. I don't know. I want to have faith and hope that people can be, uh, you know, lifted above the mire and the muck, and that with the right education and the right knowledge, they will make better decisions for themselves. I'm
Yeah.
clinging to that.
I think that's going to happen. Really, I see
Oh, I
that.
know. I feel it. It's so
I
terrifying.
I see it, but I actually see it in the reverse sense. In other words, I don't see it coming from the sense of we need to, sadly, and this is not to be a sort of like a total
Yeah,
dystopian
no, it's
view.
okay.
I think it'll come at it from a sense of, whoa, we have a workforce problem here, right? We have a huge tier of the workforce that used to exist that no longer exists. And we have a rising sort of homeless, sort of situation where people who are stuck in those various traps. I mean, I see that like in Columbus and Ohio, the
Akron.
one of the programs I've seen address it really strong is, and it's not really targeting the people who are stuck in I'd say the deepest trap. But when they came out with sort of these tech incubator things, where essentially they were taking people, and those people had to pay, right? They had to pay $10,000 to $15,000 to go through a 6 month course, of which they would go from zero to they can code, and then they would go and get a job, right? So it's more job workforce stuff. But I actually see that dropping down another tier to get more, people that can fix cars, people, all that skilled tradesman stuff. The problem is with that theory, I guess, of how that works, is whether or not the people in their stuck loops are going to get the same level of satisfaction they can get in that new loop that you're presenting them, or are they actually part of that system loop so much that it's like I know what
Yeah.
it's like to sort of have nothing in the bank and be freaked out and be like, you like learn you scale your notion of minimal. Like you thought minimal before was McDonald's, but then you go down to the fact that you just go in and you get a Coke and you eat the chips and salsa, and then you actually go to the point where you're like, you actually think about ordering things more in bulk because you're trying to find ways to actually keep your timeline longer so you can be more comfortable, so you can figure out, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's so much of that sort of like how you navigate the space. Like you think more about how to navigate your problem than fixing your problem, and that's no different than the world of startups in terms of founders focus so much more of their time and energy on every aspect other than the one that stands in front of them, which is execute. And of course they're already sort of privileged to be at that point where they feel they can execute. Just think about how many people that have brilliant ideas who are stuck in the system, and those ideas will never get to the surface. And we, as a society, are now actually denied the fact that we probably have 100 Steve Jobs. And you might say, well, they're not Steve Jobs because they haven't broken through, but that's not a fair statement. I mean, they may actually
No.
be, they may be more content in the fact that they've denied you their brilliance, or they, you
Yeah,
know what I
dude.
mean. I just think it's yeah, it's a deep well. I think once you go in the spaces, but I hear you, man.
Well, I think again,
I mean,
I
it
think
is.
what
And
we're
if you really
doing
think
is
about
problem
it from like a
description, right? Like this is problem description. So the question is, how might he test that hypothesis in a safe way as soon as possible in the smallest way?
All right, so first place to test that, probably the most targeted way, and it would take you a couple dollars, but I would use this method over all the other methods because it'll waste time. So if I want to test something, I'm going to think about a couple different ways. Where are those populations of people to get opinions on? And then that problem, there's probably multiple groups to get opinions on. Like, for example, the homeless people or the people who are in the system can't actually pay for the system, so you can't actually do the questions with those people. I mean, you can go and do some data, but that data doesn't actually change the vector on whether or not you'll actually enable it. So you have to go and talk to the stakeholders or people that have those said funding, or to the general public, or the people who are being impacted by the problem of those people around, right? Um, Based on those demographics, I would try to think of three personas. Maybe one persona is the I don't know. Think of them.
Mr. Moneybags.
Yeah, well, think of people that you can be reached. What I'm trying to do is I'm pushing you toward an online tool. I want you to use Ask Your Target Market. It's an online tool that you can use to survey your population. It's one of the first, I would say, of many tools that you can use that you can actually determine your demographics. You can say, I want women 26 to 48, left-handed, that have this, or whatever, that have these attributes of their life. You can target that group and then actually survey them and get true data that's relevant to that demographic. The more general group that you're going for, the cheaper it is, right? If you're trying to get the neurologist who only works on biceps, that guy is going to be super expensive compared to the
I
general.
want I want people who are on Section 8.
Right,
Right.
right.
So, what this highlights to me, I think, is the whole Zach military decision making process, right? This is all sounding like mission analysis and assumption identification, right?
It comes into that. It definitely can play into that, but I would argue against too much analysis because
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
do
think
like
you
the
can
war
put a
game
time
aspect.
frame.
I
Yes,
like
the
the war game
wargaming of it.
aspect because
Yeah.
that is basically simulation testing the notion of what you think will be have momentum. But I don't want your simulation testing to take 6 months. I want you to do that over the weekend, and then we're gonna then we're
Well,
gonna
the
go.
thing is, you got to understand the guy's doing his PhD, so he's completely
Oh
fine with
sure,
taking a longer time than normal to do something that should take a short time.
yeah.
Yeah, and the crazy shit about it is like the system that with all these government assistance programs, like they're just literally like made to like create like a false image of hope that we're helping, but in reality, we're just actually suppressing these people from actually becoming greater human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Africa, dude. Look at Africa as a whole. Like, look at the whole entire continent, and look at the developments and of technology that these guys come up with nothing, with fucking nothing, dude. They can make fucking anything out of trash. You give those people a better infrastructure, more, a better economy, a more developing country. These motherfuckers are gonna be the next jobs, the next Elon Musk. You know what I mean? It's just like it's just to create false hope. It's not there to, you know, to provide any assistance. It's there to keep you in the same cycle over and over and over and over and over. And yeah, they may think that they're being helped, but in reality, they're not being helped. They're just kind of being in a little echo chamber, a little escape from, because they've already been conditioned.
I think he depressed KC so much he left.
To continue to getting.
Sorry, Mr. Roger, we're cutting out for a sec. I think you made KC so depressed he left. He's like, all right, fine, I get it. Fuck this.
Sorry, dude, this is the shit that I always.
Are you saying I can take this noose off? You want me to get off this chair? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, man. And just because we know what is does not necessarily mean we know what ought to be, David Hume.
You're listening to the SquareSpace Degen conversations in a broadcaster voice. He dropped the knife. He went over to the young lady and said, "No, I choose."
And why give a girl your heart when she only wants a purse, Lil Wayne? Maybe the fundamental assumption is, right?
You know, I think what's interesting is, for as much as sometimes I feel like I give, like, sometimes you can give a gal or like a gal the notion of honor, and you're thinking like you're Lancelot about it, right? And then you realize it is totally not, like, they totally don't want a lance. They really want the other dark
Oh,
side.
Lance. You're right.
Yeah. They don't want Lance. They actually do want Arthur, and they do want him broken. And the only way he can be reborn is through because that's great storytelling, through the love. We would say love. That's not true. Through the ravaging madness of human to human physical contact. That's what
are you
we should
saying that,
actually do
like,
that to every movie.
men renovate houses and women renovate men?
I love that. I love that line. That sounds like a great infomercial.
You never heard of Chip and Joanne Gaines?
Oh, man. The game is the game. Same as it ever was.
No, I said Chip and Joanne Gaines. Gaines.
I just love that infomercial in my head. While the men are out working on the house and building, that's right, you, Lisa, and Lucy, and Susan are working on the next greatest innovation, the man in your life. There he is, working hard in the garage, trying to do the right thing, and you need to think about his goddamn career. You better get him whipped up into shape so he can earn and truly be worth your presence. Because here at Maybelline, we want to provide you the best hair products for the best girls. So you better get a man that works it.
1952. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, totally. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just thought I'd jump in for my intellectual morning, you know what I mean? Wake up call conversation.
Sweet, we're intellectual. We've been successful. All right, well, I'm going to go to my list of things I did today. Told intellectual.
Hey, wait a minute, Dan, where are you in the background?
What?
Did I hear,
Are you in the
did I hear
50s?
a tattoo gun, or like, what are you?
No, there's no tattoo
Okay.
gun. It's just
I
me.
heard that
That's not the
or a
tattoo
dentist. Are
gun.
you a dentist or?
I did just get a new tooth,
Oh.
and so I'm probably phonetically maybe heightened sense of phonetics. But no, I'm not. My cat is zooming around the house though, so that might be the sound.
Funny. No, I just heard this one sound in the background, and I was like, that sounds like either the dentist or the tattoo, tattoo place. It's funny.
I don't have any tattoos. I was thinking I should get one though, or at least I kind of like the tatleys. You can get like the rub-on tattoos. You get them in the kit. You get cool designs, and in fact, that's the next thing to work on if you think about it. Since
I think that's a great idea. We could. I'm writing the thing on the doctrine of metaphor frameworks, which are all of these corporate IT jargon that are demystifying for folks, right? Imagine you could call it like the top 10 tattoos in IT, right? And you have the Deming cycle.
Bro, just go get your Dan needs to just get himself a Houston Astros star right in the middle of his forehead.
I'm gonna get it on the small of my back.
There you go. Or get the window symbol, two panes on each butt cheek.
Oh, come on. The tramp stamp. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding. Don't get a tramp stamp.
But what if you could like scan the tramp stamp and it led to like an NFC? It's like a QR code now.
I think that would be more like an NFMe.
Yeah, I wonder if an artist would be so accurate that they could reproduce a QR code that linked effectively.
Oh, I bet you they can. I'm surprised it hasn't been done.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it has been done already.
It definitely sounds like something that somebody.
It sounds like some 4-year-old.
Yeah,
it sounds like this 4-year-old guitar maestro did it in his spare time.
Yeah, you got to get it before like the age of like 60, or like the QR code's gonna take you somewhere else.
No, I was warning people on my other account, on my Facebook account, about QR codes, because somebody was going on and on and on about how wonderful it is to have it in the in the restaurant. You just have to click a thing, and I'm like, God, you guys have no idea. Like, stop scanning like random QR codes in your city. You know what I mean? Like, I saw one in a light box yesterday in a really bad neighborhood. Not even medium neighborhood in LA. Yeah, and I'm like, what is that QR code doing there? It's probably some artist, but it's probably it could be a hacker. It could be, you know what I mean? Like, you get in, they get into your phone. Next thing you know, who knows? All right.
I mean, I think you just came up with a great NFT idea, where like typically you look at hackers and artists on opposite sides of the spectrum, but it could be like a Marvel movie with together for the first time. Hackers and artists. Artists build the art, hackers design the QR code, and now you're sniffing the population. Scan this for a chance to win $1,000.
Scan this for a chance to lose all your money. Literally, like, scan this for a chance to not be able to buy groceries for the next 3 weeks.
Scan this for a tax on not understanding technology.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. Yeah, I demand a paper menu, and if I can't get one, I walk out.
What about a sushi restaurant?
Savage.
No. Oh, omakase all the way. Are you kidding me? Come on. You let the chef decide if you're going to sushi or sashimi every time.
Come on, simply scan this code. Join our loyalty program. We'd love to have you.
You ever hear that Bill Burr joke about when he goes into a restaurant and he orders a sandwich and he asks for ketchup, mustard, and mayo, and the person goes, "Oh, the condiments are over there," and he's like, "Oh, are they? Well, why don't you go over there and put it on my fucking sandwich? Does it look like I work here?"
Oh my God, I don't know why, and I probably shouldn't. Like, all my woke friends tell me I shouldn't like him, whatever. But he is so funny. Oh my God.
Dude, It's the greatest.
He's honest. I mean, we all know. I mean, he's on top of his game, so he's a linguistic genius.
Yeah.
And so, no, he's brilliant. Honestly,
He did a whole joke using sign language. And I'm like, this motherfucker took the time to learn sign language. That's amazing. Yeah, he has a Monday morning podcast where just him talking to himself. It's arguably better than the stand-up because it's just him talking to himself and confusing himself. I mean, like, fuck it.
anybody doing anything interesting today?
I'm converting natural gas to propane on an HVAC system.
Okay.
I have made a new list of things to do. I'm going to read it off to you. Are you ready?
Yeah, go.
This will be exciting. This is the Wednesday Wonder List. I'll explain that later. Number one, we're going to go to the Watchtower. There's a store here in town called the Watchtower, and it sells like D&D books and like games and all kinds of like crazy, like, if you're into board games and stuff like that. I haven't been there in ages, and I don't know. I want to check out the latest games because I think there's going to be an emerging pattern of augmented reality sort of gaming in that space. That would be one of the first places you'll see it. So I'm sort of curious to see who's doing anything from a manufacturer and sort of merchandising standpoint. Got to work on the newsletter. I'm following Michael's ass kick because he's been working on his newsletter, and then I really need to get my content out. I really suck at getting out, and if you never start, then you always suck. So gotta work on that. Trying to get a kid paid today, that's always a problem, just because I have to like talk to the CFO and just tell them, please just pay this fucking kid, don't give me any hassle. Gotta catch up on email. I kind of want to find a young kid who's online, affordable, and
That does not sound good.
I know it doesn't sound good. It sounds like a sexual predator piece right there, but what I'm really looking for is a cosmonaut. I want a kid that will just basically be my XR VR kid, and I would send them on quests. Like today, you're going to go and learn spatial XR and do all these things in it, and you're going to make a book report and make a bunch of content. Basically, you can't spend all your time in XR, and I'm building a whole business around XR and VR, but I have to stay in the biz dev side of it, which is what I'm working on right now. Is a big proposal to the local transit system in town for them to sort of use VR, AR technologies to sort of tell better stories about the use of mass transit and how transit can be better and blah blah blah. Basically, what's funny is that it's probably less about building true innovation and education. A lot of times, and we're in this new era of, we actually said that we would change things, and we only have 5 months left. So you're going to help an org sort of like get their mission together, and that's a cool thing for me because I like to do end to end. Conceptualization, like what would it be? What's it like to get people in it? What's it like when they have the experience? What data are we grabbing? What data we can use? What data we can't? When they get out of it, do we do another survey with them? What was their experience in it? That's really cool. How do they talk about it? Do they share their friends with it? How do they share it? How do they promote it? Like, you think about the whole ecosystem. And that's a lot of fun because you get to kind of war game, back to the military thing, but you get to sort of play it out in your head. So that's part of my list today. And then I have a list of books titles that I've been working on. And I really need to sort of get my book. I've been working on a book forever in a lot of ways, but part of my problem is I, like, half the time I write and then I'll stop and then I'll think of another new book to write. So I got to stop doing that. And then play with. I usually do like Mid-Journey or AI experiments alongside. So I'll work, do calls, and then I like to have like a computer in the corner who's like an artist who's working for me. What do you got? I've been drawing these all day, whatever. It's just something about the notion of having a bunch of AIs work for you while you're working. I don't know. Something excited about that. But that's my to-do list. Wednesday Wonder, though, is a really cool idea I liked, where basically I use a 30-sided die, and I roll the die once. You get a number. Say you get 13. That's a nice number in the middle. And then you break your day between work and wonder. So you roll the dice. If you're under 13, then you work, and you can roll the dice again and how many minutes you get. So you get you say you get a 5. Okay, you're definitely going to work. You roll the dice again, and it's 26. Well, then you're going to work 26 minutes on work, and then when that ends, you roll the dice again, and now it's going to say wonder, and it'll say 3 minutes. So now you're just going to sort of like giving yourself to chaos and saying, let's just go with this day. And I kind of like it just because it's, I don't know, I like the notion of some other control for your level of attention. Just as an exercise, it's fun. And you're listening to the SquareSpace, everybody. Degen conversations in a broadcaster voice. Barry picked up the axe and ran to the front door. He peered inside. You could tell that Anne wasn't paying attention. She was still on the phone and working on some of her really important reports. He stepped in the room and stared at her. She looked at him unflinched. She knew exactly what he needed to do. She wanted him to go out there and actually clean the freaking garage like he said he would. Like he said he would do on the first date and the third date. And that one time in Paris when he didn't come back with the champagne like he promised. He threw the glass down on the floor. Damn it, Ann! I've tried everything and you still... She shut him up. One simple stare in the eyes. He couldn't help but notice that she was wearing high heels and a swimsuit. Didn't really flinch. He ran outside. I can clean this garage. I can do it. He looked back here for a sense of acceptance, a sense of notion in her eyes that she too believed in what he believed, a sense that he could possibly clean that garage and do something with his life, to change the very notions of what he thought he was, to gain her acceptance back. Nothing. She was knee-deep into the comics. She was really big into that crazy comic, the one with the guy that's always in that crazy suit. He's like going to the desert or jungle or Shadow Man, whatever. She wanted Shadow Man, and he wasn't that anymore. Desperate for attention, he got the broom, started making grunting noise. I'm going to clean this, he said, shivering the broom around, making hard, twisting noises. It didn't work. Anne was secretly wearing headphones the whole time and thought he'd been practicing for the play next week.
Excellent. Fantastic. I like your
That's
to-do
pretty
list. It's like saying, it's like, tell me you have ADHD without telling me you have ADHD.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Oh man, it's all right. Listen, Casey knows, and I think so you knows. I have a tattoo of a squares down my arm, representing boxes for to-do list. So that's why I think I almost want to start a space that's just tell me what you have to do today.
I actually love that. It's almost like the
that's a good
accountability
idea.
space.
Right? Like tell me your to-do list, because it kind of helps you keep accountability, because then you're like, oh, you're right. I have to do this. I have to do that. Huh.
Yeah, I actually like that. And I think that there's so many ways that spaces are fun like that. Kind of come in, check in. I actually think that you should also do the argument space. Like, oh, I'm here for an argument. All right. Well, I can see Michael doing the argument space.
Oh,
okay.
hell
You want
yeah.
the 5 or the 10 minute?
Yes, Michael and Casey, actually. So get Casey to co-host, Mike, like right up there, and it's I would sit there all day and listen to that. Please do that, you guys, please.
The thing is, we have there's when adding chaos to a recipe, you have to be very careful with the shaker. Like we could add a handful of hashtags, and this goes sideways very quickly.
Yeah.
KC was like, hey, if you did this, it would go nuts. And we're like, oh, we should do that. And he's like, no, don't do it. It's like that button experiment. If you press this button, someone will die, and you just keep pressing the button.
repeatedly smashing the button over and over,
That was a sketch.
uncontrollably. Yes.
Yeah, so it's I find though that every day we have those experiences. Like yesterday, we talked to. It's so funny. I never saw Dan leave halfway through a conversation before. You know what's bad when the person who asks the question leaves.
Yeah, that's a good
Wow,
sign right
I've
there.
seen Casey do that. I've seen. Oh, I have
What?
to go. Oh yeah, we're fucking right. Now you left me with the answer. He's like, hey, can you tell me this 20-minute analysis? Oh, okay, so it starts with the ether, and then he leaves. I'm like, now I have to listen to this. You asshole. What kind of
Sorry.
special hell is this? When you get to ask the questions and I have to listen to the answer?
Dude, that's trolling level 1,000. Honestly, that's like troll level 1,000. That's amazing.
Because we had it yesterday where a guy was.
Just
There was a guy, Anthony, who he had. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not saying it's not going to work. But, you know, it took a long time for us to realize that nothing was built and nothing was prototyped and nothing was used by anyone yet. And so it was just like, how long are we going to spend describing problems, guys? The
yeah.
whole time? The whole time we're going to worship the problem, huh? All right, well, all right.
I liked how I kept on cutting you off yesterday, and you were like, "Well, Dan, do you want me to reply in my own response?" I was like, "Oh, okay."
What did I say? I forget. I don't even know sometimes.
I don't know. I was high at the time, and you were just like, "I would like to reply, Dan." I was like, "No, let me tell you what you're going to say." And like, "No, I want to respond."
It's the human ability to talk about something that does not exist knows no bounds. I remember, I think it was Terry Pratchett that said, scientists moved from complexity to chaos because chaos was, you didn't have to have an answer to necessarily to be successful.
Oh, I love that. That's a key part of, when I got started with software and the prototyping. I got interviewed by a kid yesterday that wanted to sort of understand more about. He's a graduate from OSU, and he's building a company with similar to mine. And I get this a lot of like, sort of like, how did you do it? How did you get started? And, what do you do and how you do stuff? And, everybody wants the same sort of business intelligence. How big are you guys? How big is your team? And, for the most part, I don't care. I'll tell them. It's like, yeah, it's this, because it's not about how many people you have. It's really your people skills and actually getting jobs. Like anybody can do just about. I don't know where I'm going with that thread. But anyways, the kid was really big on like, well, I'm a product firm. You guys probably do software development, but there's this notion that if you're a product firm, you're sort of more enlightened. You're a stronger notion of how you want to close, the notion of, there's value here in this. And so there was a big process of that. And I was trying to say, for as much as you can do that, like, chaos still reigns supreme, like my first 25 ideas were totally bound by the simple notion of execution chaos. And those are some of the best ideas I ever had. And they're all the ones that made the company, and then it became more structuralized, then we came to, oh, I got to actually care about, more opinions other than my own. But I go back and I study those times and I really think about, okay, that created a lot of waves and it moved a lot of thinking in a very short amount of time. And in many ways, while it flies in sort of the face of how traditional design or execution of products should work, it was just as fast, if not faster. You know what I mean? So I think chaos really can change the equation at an early stage. It's just that chaos doesn't scale well. That's the problem. It's like eventually you're going to have to build a system, around
Well,
that.
the guy said that he was he wanted to create a decentralized system, and I was like, I'm pretty sure all great startups are a dictatorship, Teal, right? Like, how are you going to
Yeah.
make any decisions if everyone has equal decision making authority? That doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
That's kindergarten.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like, I don't know. There was a gal I know. She has started her own VC firm. Very cool. She basically did bankruptcy. Startup was her first startup. She really grew that, totally bootstrapped it, and now she's doing VC for basically, people that either women like herself who got turned over numerous times. I mean, there's hundreds of stories on how women, which is it's such a catch-22, because I was reading about how women typically get picked over or looked over for investment on their startups. Yet there's really strong statistics that show women run startups outperform male run startups by like 50% or more, and I believe in that. I mean, 60% of my
Just
clients
look
are
at the
women.
CEO data.
Yeah,
The CEO data are known, right? It's I think that because we hire in our own image, women are more likely to give women money than men are, and so it's like, to me, the solution wasn't how do we convince men to see the value of women. And it's like, good luck trying to solve that shit. Let me know what kind of fucking directed acyclic graph you want to throw at that shit. Why don't you just get a woman who's been through the thick of things and understands it? Why don't you have her do it? But that's the life cycle that we're in, right? And sometimes it ends up like Kathy Wood, and sometimes it ends up other ways, right?
I actually like Kathy Wood. I believe in a lot of her stuff.
I believe in her ideas.
Yeah.
Right, but it's just one of those. You know who gave Kathy Wood her startup founding money? Michael Huang, who had his $20 billion fund blow up on him in like 72 hours. Yeah, crazy.
Well,
it goes so deep.
It's one of those things where, I mean, I think she's a. I just
everyone deserves the equal right to fail on a monumental scale. It's just weird to see how it's treated. Like, look at Theranos.
Yeah.
Theranos is scary because you have a world full of people losing money, pointing at the one other person losing money and putting them in jail. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You're saying she's the only one making grandiose claims in pharmaceuticals?
Oh, totally.
Really?
Yeah. That was skewed and messed up.
You mean like how Martha Stewart went to jail?
Dude, it is...
Are you out? What? You know what I mean?
Well, the only break in this is that Ghislaine Maxwell got less time than R. Kelly. That's the break in the Matrix for me. Nothing's real after that. I'm like, all right, let's just... you have that... there's all those Bilal moments where you get really dark, right? And it'll be like, oh, fuck.
I think she got less sentence time because she was leading the kids to the pee. She wasn't actually doing the peeing.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think she should have gotten less time than R. Kelly.
One thing that's hard right now to navigate a little bit is, so I saw a tweet yesterday where someone was saying, okay, here's a startup and it's only a 9. Its startup's a 9. It's not a 10 because it doesn't have a woman in it. And so that was the tweet. And so there's a lot of different replies to that about diversity and inclusion in the startups. And I want to strive for that notion of like that is true and go for that. But then all the data I have, of the path to date, is probably going to stay the same. You know what I mean? In other words, I don't know if a diverse team really is the recipe you need to.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Well, I think our notion of what diversity means is different. Diversity pretty much means you should have hired me even though I'm unqualified, right? It's basically fourth industrial affirmative action.
I don't want.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah, but it was like the first reaction I had to that tweet was like, I pictured a kid drowning in the pool and a lifeguard saying, "Well, wait, I gotta wait until the other gender's present before we save them." Right? It's almost like, and I know that's not the right perspective to have on that. I just didn't. There's a part of me that's like, chaos doesn't care about your woke notions of health. It doesn't. Like true, straight up nature chaos is not going to go through these ethical, debates on all this shit. You know what I mean? And so why do you go and craft your notion of a perfect cocktail of people? Like you get lapped because you're focusing on the wrong problem. And also, it just a lot of my female clients definitely, you know, they're wise to it. They're always like, okay, this is a cool tech event here, but am I actually the bait in this room? Like, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, you know, they are. They know they're coming down. They know the institution is, you know, I hate the way it looks. It's like, yeah, come down to our diversity and inclusion office. We're having Welcome Women Wednesday. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah, we're having spaghetti stuffed bran muffin.
it just
Yeah,
it's
it's bad look. It looks,
yeah.
it looks bad. But how else do you do it, right?
Yeah.
Here's my thing: is that before there was no sort of, you know, people weren't saying anything, no woke culture. Nobody was demanding, you know, anything. And what happened there was that a lot of people did get left out. Women, you know, people of color, you know, people of disadvantage and things like that. So then you have to, it's almost like we have to go through this. We have to swing it the other way to have it come swing back to hopefully a more normal, you know what I mean, acceptable level. Because without the actual push in the beginning, we would still be in 1950.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and as much as it sucks to be the middle child again, right? of, of a social experiment, you know, we just are. You know, we just are.
It's just it's an interesting. I think of all the stuff. I really like Dave Chappelle, and I love some of his jokes, and I loved it when he was talking about humanity sort of embracing the brittle spirit. Everyone became very, you know, we're going through a time where we debate, like we'll create the false identities we need to, we'll create our troll identities to go and be trolls when we need to be trolls. We're sort of will augment whatever we need to do to sort of get our say out there, because it's also it's sort of like a paradox now to actually have a say in a world of social media. You know what I mean? It's just it's a weird time, but I just I hate the Lego-ification of gender. I hate the Lego-ification of people and their talents and their abilities. And you're right. There's not another easier way to do that right now, other than, you know, more corporations or more startups or more people actually making significantly more stance
Yeah,
on
you know how annoying it's annoying to me as a woman, because
yeah.
and I say and I hate saying that as a woman. How about that? I hate that sentence.
Yep.
Because I shouldn't have to fucking say it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I was maybe brought up, but I see the world, you know, I wish the world, and I understand reality versus what I wish the world to be. You know what I mean? But like, I wish people just didn't see, and I truly do believe that, don't see gender. Like, it makes no difference what I have between my legs. It's the brain that counts, right? So like, it is very, as a, you know, as a female, as a person who, as a woman, as a woman, it's easier to say that is a sentence. As a woman, it is very. I come up against this my whole life, of course, right? You do get looked over for the man, for the bro,
Yeah.
even though, you know, you're at the same level, but you don't have the penis. So you get, you know, you don't get, because you can't go follow him to the spas, and you can't go here, and you can't go there. You
Well,
know,
also because if people found out how the money was really flowing, which, you know what I mean, they would be upset. And so there's this other thing too that I think that minorities and women have in common, which is they're on the outside looking in and don't understand how the money actually is being flowed and who's benefiting. Right? I remember Carl Icahn, he takes over a business and he's like, what the fuck do these 12 floors do? And he pays like $250,000 to a high-priced firm, consulting firm, to figure out just what the hell these 14 floors are doing or whatever. And they come back with this huge notebook with all these diagrams. And he says, you know what, I'm not going to read all this. Why don't you tell me what they do? And he says, you know what, Mr. Icahn, you've been straight with us. We want to give you back your $250,000 because we don't know what they're doing either. And so he ends up letting go of the 12 floors. Not to say that that was the right decision, but it was like, if people, there is a cash flow that exists, and there's the accounting cash flow, and then the actual cash flow. And there's a small group of people who benefit from that cycle, that flywheel, right? And so it's very, it's almost like you can't convince someone of something when his like, salary depends on him not understanding it. Sinclair, I really believe that's what we have. And that's why I try to build stuff on my own, because I don't think any of these companies want me to change not a goddamn thing.
No, what fascinates me, what Dan said earlier, is also, when you said you've looked at the numbers, is that when women run, say, run the thing, it runs better, it runs smoother, higher profits, but yet men are running. And so when here's my confusion. When it comes to true capitalism, then women should be running it. If it really comes down to true numbers, it doesn't then. It absolutely fucking doesn't.
I think we're in a transition period.
Yeah.
Right? Because like women have never had this much power since Cleopatra. Right?
Fucking
And
shocking,
so
right? Look,
so now
It's coming back with a big time, man.
Oh yeah. Right? And I think once you let that cat out of the bag, you can't put it back into you can't put Pandora back into Pandora's box.
No, we're not going back to the kitchen. I mean,
No.
we are, but you know what I mean. But metaphorically, we're not going back to the kitchen. No.
I tell some women founders that the reason this is failing is because you have guys leading you. You have all the ideas, but these guys want to keep the money to themselves. And if you want this project to work, I'd rather see you in charge of the money than them. But at this point, I know what their mindset is, and I know why they're not answering certain questions, because they don't want us to know the answer, right? So it's like, let me know when you're leading your own firm, and I'd rather start small with you than start big with them.
I definitely think in the end it's all about power, and it's the human species, definitely the male species, can be intoxicated, and on the same side, on the female side, with power, although men tend to do it about 98, 99% of the time. And even when you say, like, we're not going back to the kitchen, there's a part of me that says, and I'll use my fantasy version of Anne from the story. Oh, she knew definitely that she was going back to the kitchen, but she was going back to the kitchen her way. The kind of way that says, you know what? She's only going to work 4 hours a day, and you're going to work your ass off. So do me a favor there, boy. I'm going to go in and work on the air fryer and make 900 dishes. And it's super easy for me. So I think in a lot of ways, this might be just like my sensibility, but it's like, I think men, for me, I need a burden. I think men need a burden, and that is either the business, the challenge, or family, where I think we're burden-driven animals, meaning that we want a burden, we want to take care, we want to build. We need some sense of empire mastery, whether it's through our hobbies, through our sexual encounters, through our homemaking ability, or XYZ or PDQ, some level of burden, take care of, master, dominate aspect is a key part of the human male psyche. I think on the female psyche, and again, I don't have much data here, I'm not a woman, on the women that I have done and talked to, I think it can be similar. I also think there's a big part of the wanting this to be the prized possession of, or the seek of, in a real hardcore light.
No, I understand all that. And when I say we're not going back to the kitchen, when I said that, I was, this is not exactly how I want to say this, actually. No, what I'm saying is that, we will find a way, because okay, this is going to sound very old fashioned, I'm sure, or maybe not in this room, but I still believe, because I brought up my child this way, I still believe that to have a parent at home and available to a child at all, a child, one child, two child, whatever, how many children you choose to have or choose to bring up, should be available at all times. So we have to figure out a way. I don't give a fuck if it's the dad or the mom staying home. A parent has to, somebody, we have to, in this society right now, it's not possible for this whole thing, this whole equality. Women are, because we all have to work. Well, then who's taking care of the kids? No one's taking care of the kids again, right? So we have to figure out a way where somebody can stay at home and it be more equal. It doesn't matter. Like, women have to be able to take time off to have the fucking baby healthy. We have to be able to take time off after we have a child. You know, the stress of having to go back to work immediately after having a child is insurmountable to a man, honestly. Like, you will know, and you know, and that's biology talking there. So and that's something you know, you got, you know, it's a biological
Yeah.
thing, can't be crossed. Okay, so that has to be taken account for in this sort of future that we're all trying to like build of equality, right? And yeah, there are a lot of things has to change, but luckily enough we do have models to look at, right? Because smaller countries are running a bit like this, are trying, you know what I mean? We can look at them and see what's working and see what isn't working, you know, and try to model a little bit more after that in your own household, because this is how America changes. American changes
Yeah.
within the home.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, that's, you know, I do. It makes me wonder about parenting more. One of my friends, who I consider probably a one percenter, I guess, just because he lives in the nicer things, he was showing me the other day how, you know, he can monitor his kids. He's, you know, he has all the toys. And he's like, yeah, I can watch my kid, you know, where he goes to school. Like, you know, he has total surveillance in a lot of ways. And I was just thinking about, wow, you know, my parents didn't necessarily have those tools. It just makes me think of like how it took helicopter parenting to a new level when he was like, just with so many tools and technology, he knows when his 16-year-old kid is like getting intimate.
that
He
is
knows.
unhealthy. Like,
It
what
is
kind of,
unhealthy.
I'm sorry, but yeah, that I don't see. I'm very interested. I'm very terrified, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
to
I think
see
it's super invasive.
how these children grow up into adults. Like, look, I have a 20-year-old, so or 21-year-old, actually. He's turning 21 next month, you know, this year. So you know, I have brought him up in this age of, you know, up to a point, surveillance, and you have a choice to do that, and that's not watching your kid, by the way. Like,
Yeah,
that's not watching your kid. That's your own. That's a paranoid motherfucker who's like attached his obsession of whatever, you know what I mean, to his children, and being able to watch and saying this is for their safety. We're all alive. We all got here without it, for God's
yeah.
sake.
I think.
Come on. Everyone needs to relax. You know what I mean? I mean, and if you bring your child up properly, you don't have to worry about them.
Yeah, it was pretty surprising level of evasiveness, I thought, and his kid actually even he actually walked me through the scenarios of like learning that his kid was getting a little too aggressive, and then he challenged his kid on, like, you know, don't lie to us, knowing that the kid had lied to him because he saw it, right? So he, you know, and his kid is just like him. His kid's smart, wants to be a doctor, and complains that, you know, none of the other parents that he knows have this level of surveillance that his dad has on him. And I'm like, this is not a good thing, man.
No, it's not. Like, it's actually quite kind of not, if you look at it that way. In this age of surveillance, you know, all these other kids are like, my parents don't. Well, they don't know if their parents do, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think it's healthy. I think that's taking it way too far. But you know, so many people do it. Like, they chip their kid if they could. I mean, you give them a phone.
Yeah.
Chip
I
your
mean,
kid.
he can rationalize it better than I can debate it. You know, I mean, he's got
Yeah,
this
but
defense after him.
no. He rationalizes it through. I bet you he rationalizes it through, like, the world is a bigger place now. It's not
Sure.
small. Like, I've
Right.
heard all the arguments too. You know what I mean? And to me, it's like, you're just feeding your own fear. Like, stop. It's not healthy.
Yeah, definitely. It's a crazy world, man. Crazy world. And this is the SquareSpace. Degen Conversations in a Broadcaster Voice, brought to you exclusively on planet Earth. C-137, here spinning around the universe. We got the James Webb Telescope live in the skies. If you're flying by Earth, give us a high five.
It really is like sitting in your own radio show here with Dan over there and Casey jumping in and out, and Soyu. Y'all got amazing voices. It is.
We got Sergey on here, man. You got to jump into the conversation, Mr. AR. What's going on?
Hi guys. As I understand, you all talking about everything here, not only technologies, AI, and other stuff.
That's the plan. Talk about all kinds of things that motivate the wills of men and women on the planet
Cool,
today.
cool. Really interesting to hear you. Sorry about my English. That's my second language. I'm not so good about it.
I think you're doing pretty good. I like the tweets.
I'm trying my best. Believe me.
You're doing good, man. I mean, in society, in this world, I think language matters, but understanding who you are in a glance is actually even better.
So do you know already each other? Oh, Dan and Emma. Sorry.
Kind of. We all casually know each other because I ran into Michael, who's the host here, Captain Unicorn, and then from there I met all these other fine people. And Anne, as I is great. I just met her like 2 days ago, and so we just chat about whatever's on our minds and talk about the current state of reality, culture, people, trends, technology, and we love to talk. We love to focus a little bit more on the human condition side of things, because if you can press through the human condition and refine it, then you can actually create a whole lot of new human intuition and human change. And if you can change people, you can actually do a lot of cool stuff. So like when I work in technology, I tell people I don't work in technology as much as I build people. If I can build a really good person, well, then they'll build a lot of really cool stuff. That's my theory. And so, of course, you're doing the standard thing. We're all pimping the same product, man. We're all trying to sell what we're selling, like what we've been selling for the last 10 years. But we're trying to share more. We're trying to share our vulnerability and our transparency, and this is just an open forum to do that and listen in, be a part of it.
That's cool. Nice to hear it. So, tell me, how do you manage to do such a lot of stuff? Because for me, it's really I have big trouble with time management, and it's so hard for me sometimes because I have many ideas, I have many what to do, but unfortunately, we have only 24 hours, and it's really hard for me. So.
Yeah, that's actually having lots of ideas is a good thing. It's never a bad thing. I think the answer is going to be multi-factor here. So probably the first thing is how comfortable you are, right? Do you have a job? Do you have money? Do you have the ability to sort of take time to not be in fear? That's probably the first thing. If you're not in fear of your well-being, then you can use other techniques to sort of organize your time when it comes to having lots of ideas. I'm a person that always has tons of ideas. For me, the secret is in two places. One is to journal a lot, to actually either write or do an audio journal like this. Um, part of what I like about talking and doing forums like this is that it actually helps me accelerate pattern analysis that's already in my head in a lot of ways. It's like I distract my brain by talking and lets the computer, get more RAM in a lot of ways and process ideas. Second is networking right now, and the digital side of the world is really going to be paramount. You'll probably find more connections for future possibilities through the internet in forms like this, and you might be able to have with just a peer-to-peer network in your local area, depending on how well your local peer network is like receptive to the stuff you're doing. And you're doing some cool AR stuff there, so you probably have tons of ideas. I love the morphing stuff that you were doing with some of your tweets there, and really incredible work. I think really, one thing you should try to do. Again, I'm not a coder. I'm more of a manifester. I have an idea and I figure out the pathway to sort of create that, either through a developer or typically I go and hack together my own sort of things. And I set my own measure for acceptance, right? Don't set the bar so high, man. Set the bar lower. And I would use a lot of notebooks, written notebooks. like that. That scene in the movies where they go and they try to talk to the crazy guy, and they open up his office and he's got designs all over the walls. He's got stuff paper everywhere. Those are my favorite rooms to be in. Like in design world, they would call that a war room. They would go into a room where you would see, the whole product sort of, storyboarded on the wall, and then you'd see all the business model stuff, and you would see all the parts and pieces. And you want the chaos of that a little bit. You'll organize it over time, but you want to swim in it, So try to create an environment where you can swim in your ideas so they don't feel like a gazillion ideas. In most cases, there are a lot of ideas that point to a central theme, typically, something that you're working on or working toward. So maybe working on the infrastructure of that could be helpful to do or focus on. But keep pushing yourself. Don't ever lose momentum. Keep sharing. We're going into this world where you have this unique opportunity to be authentically you, and no one else is going to be you. So, execute it. It sounds great to say that. I need to really hear my own fucking medicine because I don't execute it enough. But yeah, KC, man, jump in.
Wow, Sergey. So, I have to say that I think your artistic flair on your OpenSea NFT project is decent, and I really like the "money is your judge" as he says "guilty," and then there's the sound of the cash register banging off as each person is pronounced guilty.
Thank you. Actually, it's about politics in Russia. I don't know. Did you read the description?
I did.
Yeah,
I
for me, like it's a big project. Really. Thank you so much.
I think the artistic expression encapsulates a lot of the ideas that it seems like you're going for, and my hope for you is that gives you that time shortcut to get your message out through that artistic expression. I think you're on a good path. Очень хорошо.
Yes, sorry. Sometimes for me it's hard to understand.
No problem.
But yeah, if we are talking about management and optimize your time, actually, for me it's really the most complicated thing. And of course, I have many ideas, and I have many um, many. I want to do a lot of cool stuff, but you also have to. Sometimes you have to focus on commercial projects because, of course, we all need the money, and for me it just doesn't work at the same time. I only can focus on one or only on or my art or commercial project, and sometimes it's like waves in my life.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I actually understand very much the same way. But the way I've had to learn how to do it is you do have to pay bills. Unfortunately, you do have to. As an artist, it's hard to have that balance. But you do as much commercial work as you can and make as much money as you can, and then try to be artistic through that commercial work to feed your artistic side. You know what I mean? And then give your time. And I don't know about your life. I don't know if you have a family, so that gets even harder. But just you don't have 24 hours. You have the rest of your life. That's what I wanted to say earlier. So you don't have to think, oh my God, I'm losing all this. I'm only doing this thing here, and I'm not doing this over here. You will have time. You know what I mean? But yeah, I guess I don't want to say the most important thing is keeping a roof over your head, but yeah, if you do have to go and work as well. I don't know if that made sense. And I kind of was rambling at the end.
I got you. I'm gonna follow it up.
I apologize.
I'm gonna follow it up.
And then I got lost in my own thought. And then
It's all, dude. My dad
Great.
would get frustrated at me and tell me, "Hey, listen, you keep on trying to take these big leaps. You're trying to jump to the goal. It's okay to take little steps as long as you're heading in the right direction. Little steps are great. It's okay. Take little steps. Just take a ton of them. Always chip away at it."
Yeah, stay in motion. Momentum
Yeah.
at all costs. And if you don't know if you're in momentum, then odds are you don't have it. Or
Yes.
um, there's times when you're going to be in a down cycle. I guess maybe I get in that because I'm more ADD. Although no one ever told me that. It would be nice if I got that diagnosis, because then I would have known myself. But maybe not getting it was better. You know what I mean? Like if they told me,
Oh, dude, what if you'd been medicated out of that?
that's true. I could have been medicated out of it. That's
Oh, he
man.
left. Oh, maybe he. Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. Imagine if you got medicated out at 14, and you wouldn't, and they, you see what this medication does. It does dampen.
It does, but I will say, like, if you could choose a state of who you were, do you want to be like, would I want to be the Dan I was before the medication or after?
I don't know. Yeah, I struggle with that too because I feel like I should be on medication. Maybe it might help me, right? Be more organized.
Man, I didn't want to do it at all. I fought it for years.
I don't want to get into your personal thing, but yeah,
Yeah, it's okay.
I talk to adults now, and here's the thing for me is like never wanted to anyone medicate my son. I want the brain to grow until at least 20. You know what I mean? 20 years old, and then we'll talk. That was
That's
just
cool. I never thought about it like that.
but that's just my own feeling.
Was it? I want to say it was the Swiss or the Dutch did a bunch of testing, and their basic conclusion was like, once you're in the 20-year range, your body chemistry is more settled, and then external factors, drugs, don't have such a long-lasting impact. Something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you're saying the ideal
brain
time
is
to
still
get high
forming.
is in your teens. Sorry.
Yeah, your brain is still forming at those ages. So like between 0 and 13 especially, that's when your brain is physically gaining mass.
But that also seems like in a future crazy world. Are you having are you tired of your kids just sitting around playing ball with the other kids? Did you know that your son can be enrolled in a new unethical trial with DVX7? DVX7 is a new drug, deep from SquareSpace, the Degen corporation for broadcasters with the broadcaster voice. Anyways, I could just see why not
exponentially increase their frontal cortex.
Oh my god!
Watch the
Wait.
synapse happen so fast their brain gets hot.
But hey, listen, guys. So we gave all these kids all these ADHD medications so they could concentrate. And what did they do? They sat in their room and played video games.
But they got really good at them.
I know, but what if we didn't? What if we didn't give them the medication? You know what I mean? What if we didn't over medicate all these kids?
Well, the thing is, we have to keep them quiet in class because there's 50 of them.
Yeah, I know.
The thing is,
I know.
the game is the
It was an
medication.
answer to a problem.
Who told me?
It's like the cane toad answer.
Who told me that university? I think it was Lincoln. Lincoln told me university is a babysitting service for teens.
Yes. Yeah. No, but it's like the cane toads, right? They brought in the cane toads into Australia. And next thing you know, they're
Right.
species. Well, let's bring in medication to keep all these kids quiet because we won't pump more money into our education infrastructure to help these kids out.
You know what, though? As an immigrant, I can't say that the lack of literacy skills hasn't afforded me a lot of opportunities in Canada. If everyone was smart, there wouldn't be an opportunity. There'd just be a million of these spaces, and I would be the one listening. But it's if people weren't stupid, there wouldn't be an opportunity to make money. And because we don't have the right to change anyone, right? Then there's always going to be blockchain projects that don't work, and there's always going to be things that don't work. And from what I've seen in finance, you have to have a loser to have a winner, right? And if we didn't have losers, we wouldn't have an economy.
That's chaos law 685 B9.
What is chaos law 685, and how did it emerge, Dan?
685 was just before 643. and before that, there was the 585. And Casey fought pretty hard for the 585, and I took a position on 48, and we had a huge fight about that. That's when he tried to. He says he didn't do it, but I swear someone pushed me, and I fell on that subway rail, and I looked up at Casey, and I was like, "Dude, let it be this."
I
And the
had my
car
hand
was
out
coming.
trying to help you. I was reaching for you.
He was reaching for me, and the car sped by. Just before it sped by, he said, 48, are you really serious? And the car was right by, and we were separated. And then, yeah, I think we decided collectively in the syndicate to go ahead and adopt 7, because at that point, we had enough with 6-8. But we still think about a lot about 4-9.
You ever watch Playing Shakespeare? It was a 9-part series where, like, Jean-Luc Picard and David Suchet and all these people
That
were
would be
like
great.
young. So it was an actual show. Playing Shakespeare was led by John Barton, the director, and what I found was that in all cases the actors would read the script, and then the coach would come in and give them a dramatic situation. And then the dramatic situation gave them the emotionality. So it was like, I like that speech, but now what if you said it in a lecture hall where your students were becoming skeptical? So just like as a general point, like see how I sometimes like will throw out like scenarios, right? It's because I've seen that if you can put people in that like scenario, myself included, then it just unlocks those possibilities and brings down those prefrontal cortex walls, because you're acting in the scenario, not explaining it as Dan yourself.
Completely, man. It's it's funny though. A lot of people will resist that kind of line. They don't want to go to that, but a lot of people that do go love it.
Well, the thing is, your metaphor frameworks break down when you start considering playing with ideas, right? And most people don't want you to go after their gospel, right?
True.
That gospel is all they have. It's all they wanted. It's all they need.
That makes me think of another story.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I always have to start stories the same way, though. SquareSpace. Degen conversations in a broadcaster voice. Casey crossed the threshold. Your Honor, may I address the bench? The judge nodded. Casey addressed the bench and proceeded to present his arguments for why straws should be exactly 1 inch longer, because his mouth needed extra room. The judge looked over it. You really want an extra inch on all straws in North America? Your Honor, I deserve it. Bring up file 489Z. Show us the life of KC. Up on the monitor screen, his light turned on. And Michael's voice narrated. As you can see, KC grew from a year 8, his whole life displayed on the screen. Every possible deal. That time he was at camp, when he learned the saxophone, when he saved those 2 kids on the train. That time he didn't save me. Stop here. Casey, can you describe the situation? That was back in the 7-4s. We ended up with 8. Carry on. The video forward on. Okay, here's the scene. Well, apparently the straw is too short for your mouth. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like this changed for all realities. Let it be done.
What he didn't know was that the judge was the owner of the largest paper straw mill in town.
Exactly. That's right.
And
Everything has to have that.
And the paper straw people had all worked it out ever before discovery was even completed.
Oh man, that's great.
That was awesome.
Look, I'm okay with the NSA and the Illuminati. We got to go out, find out who's behind the paper straws. Get after that person. These paper straws are ruining my experience. One sec.
They ruined my experience, I will say. I just had to throw that out there.
I haven't even used them.
Preference.
What?
Yeah.
How bad are they? Do they
Oh
go
my God,
pretty
they're
quick?
awful, Casey.
Really?
Honestly, like you can't drink your drink. Like if they hand it again, you want me to scan a QR code? Go fuck yourself. Give me your menu. Like you give me a paper straw, no thank you. You know what I mean? I will just drink my drink like a normal, I don't need the straw. You know, yeah. Oh, also, if you hand me a copper cup with a fucking drink in it, I will request a glass cup. I am not a teenager, and I don't like all that sweat dripping down my body.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, I know the Moscow Mule craze. Ugh. Like, yeah, you especially in look, I live in Los Angeles. If you go out, if you unfortunately have to go out to one of these places, that charge you like $30 a drink.
Oh, you get the little brass
a
cup.
fucking copper cup.
For the copper cup, yeah.
No, absolutely not. Mm-mm. No,
I hear that the metal straw is a thing.
Yeah, also dentists love that.
Yeah, and the glass straw.
Industry is behind the metal straw industry. Trust me. Like, have you ever like on your tooth with one of those things? Yeah, tooth out. No, they're very dangerous. You could literally kill someone with one of those. Not literally. That was a terrible sentence.
But still, it's a metal tube.
It is a self-defense tool, I will say. You could use
way to
it
reframe that one.
Thanks.
Way to reframe that for self-defense is what I'm
it's
talking
a
about.
Self-defense tool, absolutely.
Good reframe.
Guys, sorry, I gotta go. It was a pleasure to hear you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, be good. Have a good day. Talk to you again soon.
Yeah, have a great day.
I always I know just the tiniest bit of Russian, and I always am holding myself back from engaging. Like, no, don't try to be that guy. I know some of your language. You know what I mean?
Come on, be that guy, Casey. Come on.
Здравствуйте, очень хорошо.
No,
Меня
don't
зовут Casey.
Don't no.
No, yeah. See,
no,
right?
I work.
It's all that.
I work with a lovely girl from Ukraine, and I love hearing her speak to her kids on the phone. You know what I mean? Although usually she's yelling at them, but it's still. But to be fair, but I'm still like, oh, there she goes. I want to listen. Yeah, it's wonderful.
I enjoy foreign language. I'm not bilingual or trilingual or anything like that, but I sure do enjoy it. I always enjoy dipping into the Russian curse words and how their translation of motherfucker is inclusive to the entire genealogy of females in your family tree. Like, what a twist.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Way to make it deep, right?
Hey,
way to make
I
it
got
hard,
this.
Russia. Well done.
Right? Fuck your mother? No, fuck all your mothers. Yes.
Oh man. Ooh. I think how's the heat over there? You guys
It's heating
weather
up
right now, but I really wanted to I actually is it hot where you are or no? Or is it just in the middle
Yeah.
of
No, it's heating up. We're, upper 80, 90 range. Well,
okay. All right.
yeah. But for us, 90s is getting up there.
Today was the day I was supposed to be traveling to Maine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and going on a lovely 2-week hiatus to the island, but I just couldn't. This year could not. Yeah, there's too much going on. Life, work, real life, right?
Gotta take care of yourself, man. That's why I that lifeguard analogy, I just enjoy so much. You know the one I'm talking about?
The one about Pamela Anderson?
Ha 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 ha. So the setup is you're a lifeguard at the end of a pier on a stormy day, and you look down and there's somebody in the waves below you and they're drowning, and you jump in and you get a hold of them right as a huge wave picks you both up and is going to violently throw you against the pier poles. Like bones are going to get broken. It's going to hurt. Do you A, roll and shield the person that you're saving from the hit, or B, do you use that person as a pillow to cushion the blow? What do you do?
Depends if you're in the military or not.
The
Have you received the
pillow.
training?
Well, the pillow, because you're the only one that's out there that can save that person.
Yeah, they're
They're already in
already
trouble.
fucked. They're already
in
going
trouble.
down. If you go down, you're both done. You got to take
Well, I mean,
care of
you
yourself.
hope your instincts kick in like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
But yeah.
so use point, if you're military trained and you understand survival situations because you've trained for them,
And you've been indoctrinated to look out for your fellow man like it's your own body. Right? There's a lot of after reading through these documents, I have a healthy respect for some would call it, indoctrination sounds like there's a negative illusion emotionally, but
I see
doctrine
the
is just
positive. I see
right?
the
You
positive.
understand? Just
Yep.
to input and cement a doctrine, because in the fog of war, we need everyone to be very disciplined and do what they're supposed to fucking do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I find it's like, we often are wondering, hey, why doesn't this startup work and why doesn't that startup work? And most people don't realize that it's not the technology, it's the teammates, right? It's the ecology of people we brought together, And so they really, the whole doctrine is aimed around saying if your people aren't prepared, you're fucked.
Okay.
Right? And I think a lot of times with the startups, we're trying to prepare people overnight. It's not how anything works.
True that. And on that note, I'm going to disappear. I'll see you all later.
Be well. Have a good one.
Yeah, have a great one, Dan.
So now, Casey, you have to make a story up about Dan.
Oh. Let's see here. The SquareSpace, Degen conversations in a broadcaster voice. As Dan exited the room, he knew that the reality would shift. Soon his timeline and the timeline of those around him would slowly disentangle, becoming looser, more towards threads than the rope that he'd become dependent upon to keep his own timeline from going to the abyss, where he knew he now must go. There. How's that?
He didn't want to go, he wanted to stay. He wanted to look, he wanted to observe. Because looking and observing and commenting on observations was the safest place. And he knew that the safe place was actually the most dangerous place on the planet. But the siren songs were just so good, and the siren sex was even better. But just like Ulysses and Odysseus 2,000 years before him, through Plato's words, did, Dan decided to leave the island of Calypso, put down the steel pan, and venture back to see his wife Penelope at home.
That's fun. That's fun. That's a good time.
It's just run-of-the-mill improv, right? But I think it's improv that stand-ups can't do because they don't have the domain knowledge.
Speaking of which, improv, dude, I was thinking of this skit. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was thinking of this skit where, like, you know how I did it for Kit. I don't know if anybody else was in here, but I was thinking of this skit where, like, you know how, like, nowadays, like, men, like, they're trying to, like, I don't know what it is, but there's like a stigma, like everybody wants to be an alpha male, like, nowadays, like they have to, like, vocalize it and they have to make sure that everybody knows I'm the fucking alpha. Well, I was thinking of like a skit that would, like, demasculine, like demasculinize, like, guys, but, like, still provide, like, the sense of, like, being a man, right? So, like, let's say that like after a long day's work, I was out there, busting the whip on the ranch, throwing hay bales and shit for me to, go inside my home and bust out the foot soaker and stick Epsom salts in there and soak my dogs. you know, you know what I mean? Like things that would be like considered feminine to like certain men, but they're just like self-care techniques that men use or like that anybody can use, but like do it in like a masculine voice. So like for instance, it would be like this. Don't you just feel like a man when you're out there on that tractor pulling a big bale of hay and you got the sweat dripping down the small of your back, dripping down so good, passing right through that little tight little G-string that you have. And then you get home just to soak your feet in some nice vanilla smelling Epsom salts, kick back and watch the Golden Girls. Don't you just feel like a man?
That's commercial. Yeah, it's one of those things where I was telling Dan that you know Lincoln, the CFO, was creating the voice acting pieces, right? And I noticed that in order to take things to the next level, we just have to get some mic technique. Not to say that what you were doing wrong was wrong, Mr. Rogers. It's a general statement of like there's this thing where you can talk to the microphone too much, and then when you talk to the microphone too close, you get all these plosives and all that air into the microphone, right? So little things kind of go a long way. But the general idea is like, I think people are bored of listening to the facts. I think they're interested in people who understand the facts so that they can have fun with it.
Yeah,
And
I know
Dan's been
the
through
whole
that
mic
experience.
situation. I'm using a fucking AirPod Pro and it sucks balls because there's earwax like clogging the fuck out of it. So
No, it sounds clear, right? But I'm saying like if we wanted to, it's, because I have comedians making money from their comedy, I don't think there's any reason that individual speakers can make money with their jokes, like Dan, right? So we're putting together the Dan album. And so, now that I see the pathway to revenue, it's just like, okay, so what of this content is unique enough and funny enough that we might be able to put into an album and then register that album and get everyone paid royalties and all that good stuff? Because I'm doing it with the comedians, we're doing it with the musicians. What's the difference between a musician, someone reading an audiobook, and Dan telling jokes? It's all the same to me.
no, that's true. Yeah, because I never really thought of that. I always make like silly voices and shit just to pass time. Because I'm like a serial talker to myself. I talk to myself all the time, and I like make like funny voices and shit like that. Like just to fuck around. I never really thought of like actually like using it for something.
Yeah, it's because I came from the stand-up world, right? So it's like everyone was thinking about, okay, I need an album, I need 5 minutes, I need a new 7. That's how they would talk, right? But now that we have this ability to create a record label with $70 a year, I was like, wait a minute, guys. Remember all those? Like I told Quinn, I'm like, dude, now that we have this mechanism, you need to record every set in HD. Because when you do like those jokes between the jokes, you could have a 15-second copywritten material that blows up, as long as we can protect it. There's so
Yeah,
much
that makes
music.
sense.
There's so much stuff I want to release right now, but we have to wait the 2 to 4 weeks for it to be registered, right? And upload it to stores before we release it. So I'm doing we have like about 30 or 40 tracks deep with the Ghanaian producers and the Ghanaian artists, right? Quinn's doing a new album, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, if we're doing it over here, why can't we do it over here?
Yeah, exactly.
After a long, hard day of working the land with your raw, bare hands, you know that vanilla Epsom salts are ready for your weary dogs. Soak them dogs, trim those cuticles, and shucks. Get some gloss out and shine those pretty toes. This is the SquareSpace. Degen conversations in a broadcaster voice.
I think today was a good show. It's always changing.
Well, guys, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you this morning. I'm going to go do some other stuff. So,
Word.
yeah. I guess I'll say the title, right? I'll try again. Here we go. All right, guys. This has been... nope. Hold on. Okay, this has been the SquareSpace Degen Conversations in a broadcaster voice.
Mr. Rod.
I've been practicing on like a National Geographic voice recently. So let me see how it goes. The Squarespace Degen Conversations in a Broadcaster Voice. So it's brought to you by So You Want to Attract Funding, and we got Casey observing the observers, observing the world around him. As we approach 11 o'clock, we come into a world where humankind is not so kind. In fact, they're very not alike. But what are we to do from here? Do we just give up, get on hands and knees and pray to our gods, the many gods that we possess? What do we do? The words, the thoughts, the memories, everything that we've compiled, everything is there for the taking. But what are we to do when mankind is not so kind?
That was really great. Wow. Mr. Roger, I didn't know it was hiding in there. It's
Dude,
infectious. I think
it
what
is
it is,
fucking infectious.
it allows us to because everyone's expecting wherever we go, people expect us to play it straight. Hi, Mr. Raj. How are you? Casey, it's nice to see you. And Nokia, Lashkoshi, hope everything's well. How are the kids? Oh, that's great. You fuck your wife last night? Oh, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like you can get into that, right? Mode of just, dealing with people as perfect strangers.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was thinking of like a white trash voice too.
Oh, I can't
I don't know. I
wait.
have like a bunch of them, dude. Like I have
Yes,
like a bunch
please.
of
What does a white trash
fucking
voice
white
sound
trash.
like?
Well, all right now. So, we were out there at the trailer park, and Betty Sue, she was out there too. And she was just telling me to round up all the kinfolk and all the kids and whatnot. And I just couldn't figure it out. I just couldn't figure it out for the life of me. I was just so hyped up on Mountain Dew, and I was sitting back in my lazy bar recliner watching Dale Earnhardt Jr. bring it home for America, baby. America. All to find out that we were going to lose to freaking Joe Byron? Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? Joe Byron, he caused the coronavirus. He caused all this mess that we are currently in. And if I goddamn have to take that ivermectin, I damn for sure will do so.
Today's show, the Squarespace Degenerate Conversations in a Broadcaster Voice, is brought to you today by ivermectin. That's right, ivermectin. Are you feeling a little sniffly? Do you find yourself searching in the middle of the night for another foal? If so, ivermectin is for you. The only treatment so effective, it isn't even legal.
Dude, you know what got me to think about those like different voices and shit? So like if you play video games and you know what an NPC is, and you go up and interact with the NPCs, they all have like different fucking voices and like
Mm-hmm,
different
mm-hmm.
sayings and shit. And whoever comes up with that shit, they're fucking geniuses because some of the responses are fucking funny, dude. Like I was playing Cyberpunk 2077 and I was just walking because I was bored as hell and I was like I was high as fuck. And I was just walking around to like all the NPCs and like, you know, interacting with them and talking to them. And like some of them were like, "Hey big boy." And then some of them were like fucking construction workers, and like the construction worker voices, like you would walk up to them, they'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here, fuck off." Like they would like give them like a distinct voice that you would think like a construction worker would sound like. It's fucking funny.
Oh, my bad. I just have to send a note. Oh, man. So, Anne asked what we're doing today. I don't know if you guys know Dr. Wetzel, but we did an interview. And the only problem was the interview was like 75 minutes. And trying to render something like that is not fun. So the M2 Mac came yesterday, and I got it set up. And I'm starting to move things over. But the crazy thing now is like, the only reason I wasn't creating this content faster is because the rendering times took so long. So now that I don't have to worry about the rendering times, you guys are going to see a lot more content come out.
The fucking shit.
Dude, that M2, let me tell you something. I was on an IBM ThinkPad, Lenovo ThinkPad for most of my natural life. Having this MacBook, first of all, the screen is stupid. It feels like you've been watching things on 240p your entire life when you open this thing up and watch like a music video or something. And then the keyboard makes you feel like you're typing like Angelina Jolie because it's like so soft, like you're not even like really pressing buttons. And it's almost like the keyboard can move faster than, you know, like you're usually hindered by your keyboard. This is like the keyboard that feels like it's like pushing wind at your back. So it's
Yeah,
a
I have a
fascinating piece of
MacBook.
hardware. It's
Yeah,
dude.
I got the first
I'm just getting
iteration of
used to this shit.
the MacBook Pro M1, the one that came out like 2 years ago, and that thing fucking blew
Mm-hmm,
my
mm-hmm.
mind. Because I was so used to like PCs and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
you know, I never had them. I never like took the step. I was like, I have iPhones and stuff, right? But I never took the leap to convert like my computer to a fucking MacBook. And the moment that I did, I was just like, holy fuck, this shit's like I'm not gonna lie, the MacBooks are fucking like it's completely the interface is completely fucking different. Like everything is like I had to relearn like all the
Dude,
different
the
features
touch,
and
there's
functions
like
and
this touch bar at the top that allows me to like have like really granular control over the volume or my color correction in Adobe. And like even now, like how many applications that are local am I really using? What, the file system? Maybe Adobe Premiere, right?
everything on there.
I do all of my document creation with Google Drive, right?
Well,
I
you have
use
to
Google.
understand that everything is local because in order for it to function on Mac OS or iOS, they literally have to recode everything in order to work on those operating systems.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
like it's
I saw
catered
that.
specifically to the machine. So every single ounce of power that you're getting out of the machine. Like they optimize those apps to use it to its like most efficient form. That's why you see like all these like higher end like photographers and creators and people who do like editing and stuff like that. They'll some of them they even got the Mac the just the Macs, the Mac
Yeah,
the MacBook
the
the stand
standalone.
one,
Sure.
Yeah, the fuck that those things are like 10 G's.
It's nuts,
Fucking
right? But I understand, like, I understand it because when I put in the footage today, it was like, oh shit, you saying this is what the footage looks like? Right? I'd never seen that color that rich. So it's
yeah,
just one
because
of those
that's the
things now.
actual color.
That's the actual color. I'm like,
Yeah, that's the actual color.
whoa, look at
When
all
you
the
try to
colors
do
in this thing.
when I do, color correction on my monitor from my MacBook, I could never get it down. Like I could never match the same fucking colors because the OLED Retina screen that they provide with the MacBooks, the color correction and the RGB and all the stuff that's on there, it's fucking different. It's like just completely different. Like the screen just it's just like flawless. It's I don't know how to explain
It's
it.
it's
You've seen it.
it's really tough because it's like, I'm just using a handful of apps, and usually to do these operations, like they're really compute intensive. When you're loading in a 4K video and trying to scrub through 2 hours of footage, right, with like 10 layers, it struggles. And now it's like it just works. So,
Yeah, what's even crazier is how they have their fucking aluminum heat sinks that are like there's no fans on those MacBooks. Like there's no fans or anything.
well,
So
it's
it's
funny because
like
Roland, who's the guy who owns the company that I'm doing work for, when he got the MacBook delivered to him, he's a ThinkPad Windows guy, right? Because he's in security and all that kind of stuff, and like physical security, right? So you're using whatever OS the warehouse is using, because you have to talk to it. And when he was like, "Oh, it's a Mac. This is great. This is the fancy thing that you guys wanted." Right? And he's looking at it. It looks pretty simple. He's like, "Whoa, this is pretty thin." And then he opens it up, and it says hello to him because it's half charged. And he's like, "Whoa," because where do you get that? Where do you get a half charged device that greets you with a hello?
yeah, they all keep them halfway charged. The fucking security on the fucking Apple devices is top fucking notch. That's the reason I stick with Apple, dude. I don't ever have to. I don't really. You never really hear about Apple phones getting hacked. You hear Androids, PCs, all that
Yeah,
shit.
you have to go to Israel with $2 million if you want to hack an iPhone.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Like the FBI, it was gonna take them fucking like there was like a
Hmm.
case they were working on, and it was
I
gonna
saw
take
that.
them
Yep.
4 weeks to fucking unlock the phone. And Apple said, "Well, if it's gonna take you 4 weeks, it's gonna take you 4 weeks, but we're not giving you the access to this phone."
Yeah, the scary part of that story was
Fucking
that
crazy, dude.
the government got the Israeli cybersecurity people to do it, right? So they actually hired it out, and then somebody said, "Oh, okay, for this much money, you too can hack into an iPhone." It was like $750,000, I think, at that point.
Yeah, because everything's run through freaking iCloud servers. So so once like if somebody wants to access, like for instance, like I have my Face ID on here, so if I can access it and I can put my passcode in, but if somebody wants to access my cloud account that is connected to my iPhone, that goes to their servers, and their servers are like fucking the encryption on the servers are fucking insane. Like if you don't like I tried to so I got like a joke like an Apple, I guess like somebody had forgot their password and I bought it for like $50. And like supposedly there was like this software that you could like send the MEIC number to and the MAC address of the product. You'll send it to them, and that they'll freaking unlock it for you. And I did that, and they never fucking unlocked it. It was a load of bullshit. I just sent them fucking like $20 for them to do something that they could never fucking do. So after that, I was like, oh yeah, these guys are full of shit. I'll just buy a new one.
Yeah, it's astonishing. The it's really funny because like I'm my mind is opening up to the fact that I'm really a simple computer user in terms of what I'm using locally, right? It's like I have Adobe and I have a file system, and I drag files into Adobe, and Adobe spits files out. That's pretty much all I'm doing.
Yeah, so like, and that's what brought me to like, so that's why I use mostly Apple products, because back in the day when I used to have an Android phone, I was able to flash custom ROMs onto the phone. So um, I don't know if you remember the OnePlus, those OnePlus phones. You know those phones?
Yeah.
So OnePlus was like a company that they used to have their own operating system, and it was a flashed operating system that you could flash onto your Android phone, and you could essentially run like different applications, and you can jailbreak the phone because like whenever you're on Android OS or you're using like some Bixby or anything that's Android based, um, they tend to limit the like certain things that you can do on it. Like same with iPhone, right? That's why you have to like jailbreak Apple devices if you want certain applications and stuff like that. So I was able to do that with my Android phone. I was able to flash a custom ROM onto the phone, and it had like a bunch of different features. I was able to access like apps from an APK, from an APK store, like online, and like do certain shit with it, and then it got to the point where these companies that were manufacturing these operating systems, these custom ROMs, um, they started making their own devices. So then the open sourcing of the algorithms and stuff like that. I mean, not the algorithms the way. So like now you're seeing like all these people that had these custom, flashes for these Android devices coming out with their own phones, and those phones are, just as badass, but they're like so much cheaper. So like a OnePlus phone you can get for like $600. But the only thing with that was that because I knew that I was able to flash it, I just knew that the security probably wasn't as good as, let's say, Apple, that's been working on their shit for freaking, the past 20 years. You know what I mean?
I'm just staring at this thing right now, and it's like I have two dongles because there's only two ports, right? So I have like two dongles coming out of this thing, and it's weird because it has the traditional um auxiliary port in it,
Yeah, it does. It has a 3.5
right? It's like,
millimeter jack. Yeah.
yeah,
Did
and I
did you
like
get
that.
the hub? Did you get the iPhone? I mean the hub that comes with your
Well, I
SD
have
card,
two
your micro
hubs
SD
plugged
card
into this
slot.
thing.
Oh, you got
I
two
have two
hubs.
hubs. So I have, because they only have two USB-Cs, right? So I have two USB-C hubs going into this thing. One is routing the power, the hard drive, and the keyboard, and the other one is running the sound mixer and the mouse dongle.
Yeah, I bought so I have one wireless setup. So I bought the MX3 mouse by Logitech with the MX3 Mixmaster keyboard, and then I have the hub that has because I started getting into photography again. So like I bought I have a camera set up and all that stuff, and then I have like a large hub that has an Ethernet port. It has two HDMI. I mean, one HDMI port. It has a display port. It has three USB plugins and some other stuff. You might want to look into that, and it also routes power to the thing too, so it powers it as well.
I'm trying to get the headphones to work. Do I have to go into settings? Where is settings? Sound? Let's see here. Mac Bros. Oh, external headphones. Oh, wow. Oh, shit, it works.
Hold on, I'm gonna step away real quick. I gotta
God,
go inside this house.
that's crazy. So, like, the weird thing about this Mac is that while it only has two USB-C plugs, it has the auxiliary 3.5 millimeter for the headphone jack, right? And magically I plug my headphone wire into it, and I'm now listening to my MacBook. So, you know, I understand why they're reducing the types of ports because they want to keep it thin, right? And the HDMI port is not that thin, right? I get it. But there is the dongle network that you can do. And so right now, like what the hard drive has maybe 512 of space because the 1 terabytes was sold out. But I have the hard drive connected to it, you know? So just using the hard drive as my hard drive, the external hard drive as my hard drive. Can we still call it a Degen space if we're all using Macs? Maybe. Well, we get back to this. Spin the SquareSpace. Degenerate conversations in a broadcaster voice. We've been talking to Casey, Mr. Raj, Alice Scoshi, Dan, Anne Marie about many things. Today we talked about how might women entrepreneurs succeed. Oops. Sorry, my hand hit something. How might women in entrepreneurship succeed? And I think if we hire in our own image, then you're only going to find women that really take up that torch. As bad as it might be, I really do believe that women have never had this much power since Cleopatra. And to Anne's point, I don't think they're going back into the kitchen. Now, some people might say that because of the way we're moving society and introducing women into the workforce en masse, that the family structure will inevitably suffer. And you can't deny that there are no solutions, only trade-offs. If both parents are out of the house more, then there is going to be an impact at home. That said, my parents left me home almost all day long unsupervised, but my supervision was my homework and it was the homework that they gave me. I had 2 curriculums, the books I had to read for school and the books I had to read at home. Right? And I think when we think about the school system is good or the school system is bad or the school system is this or it's that, at the end of the day, the school system meets a child largely after they've been formed. And who formed them cannot deny that it takes a village to raise a child, and the primary village, which is the home life, is most important. Right? So in a lot of ways, when we talk about the problems with education, we're talking about a symptom, not a root cause. And if you would try to understand why things are the way they are, follow the Japanese. They know how to build cars and fix problems through the Kaizen methodology metaphor framework. And they said if there's something going wrong, ask why 5 times. Ask why 5 times. And I think people haven't gotten past the second why.